Man Speaks magazine today. With the Son of Man Speaks magazine, you'll receive automotive tips, wholesome recipes, financial advice, and most importantly, a true understanding of the Word of God. Get your copy of The Son of Man Speaks from these select locations. Sisters, Braid 2, 18070 Mount Elliott, the Shell gas station, 13110 West 7 Mile Road. To get a subscription, call 601-786-9788. That's 601-786-9788. The Son of Man Speaks magazine, dedicated to becoming free indeed.
Attention, brothers and sisters, viewers and listeners, now available. Your Son of Man Speaks magazine digital subscription. Your digital subscription to the Son of Man Speaks magazine will also include our monthly e-newsletter, both delivered to your inbox. If you have any questions regarding the digital magazine subscription or digital newsletter, you may send an email to shabazsprinting@thenewnationofislam.com. That's shabazsprinting@thenewnationofislam.com. Or call 1-601-786-9788. That's 1-601-786-9788. You can also subscribe online. Visit www.thenewnationofislam.com and click on the magazine tab to register for your online subscription.
We would like to invite you to help support the efforts of the Unity and Rebuilding Fund. Visit the website at www.unityandrebuildingfund.com. That's www.unityandrebuildingfund.com. We often hear how we need to work together to rebuild the city, and we're actually doing it. You can make online donations and click on links to track the progress of the Unity and Rebuilding Fund. And for more information, 313-868-0000. It's a local number. Again, 313-868-0000. Support the Unity and Rebuilding Fund.
To make your online tithes, offerings, donations, gifts to the Son of Man through Cash App, make your payment to $New Nation of Islam. That's $New Nation of Islam. Or call 601-786-7056. 601-786-7056.
I just used your other one though today because it did 2 drips, and I was like, oh, I can use my umbrella. My homegirl was talking about it. I'm like, don't talk about it.
With our umbrellas, our customers are turning a drab day into a fab day. After all, representation matters. In other words, rain or shine, we've got you covered. Introducing Designs by Deej, your one-stop gift shop for all things handmade and unique. Our products range from our most popular umbrellas, blanket and pillow sets, handmade coasters, and other statement pieces that showcase the beauty of our melanin and natural hair in a beautiful and empowering way. You can find our brand at the sister shop locations in New Jersey and Atlanta, Georgia, or you can visit our website, www.designsbydeej.com. Again, that's www.designsbydeej.com.
SOS Graphic Design provides agency-quality professional graphic design services from established companies to startups and individuals, creating a simple logo to complete rebranding and delivering visual communication with print media. Everything SOS Graphic 342-2166. That's 313-342-2166. Or online at www.sosgraphicdesigns.com.
Are your clothes coming apart at the seams? Universal Seamstress and Tailoring has got you covered. At Universal Seamstress and Tailoring, we specialize in a wide variety of alterations and transformations to make and keep your clothes looking and fitting their best. From hem jobs to downsizing suits and dresses for a perfect fit to replacing zippers and buttons, Universal Seamstress and Tailoring is your one-stop shop for clothing maintenance. Also, do you have a logo for your clothes you'd like to wear? Universal Seamstress and Tailoring can put it there. That's right. At Universal Seamstress and Tailoring, we not only do alterations, but embroidery as well. Shirts, pants, coats, hats, even bags. If you can wear it, we can embroider it. So remember, whether it be alterations or embroidering you need, Universal Seamstress and Tailoring has got you covered. Universal Seamstress and Tailoring is located at 1404 Main Street, Fayette, Mississippi. Come and see us or give us a call at 601-786-0540.
Year-Around Landscaping has been serving Metro Detroit for over 20 years, offering various landscaping, lawn care, property maintenance, and home renovation. Our professionalism has earned us an outstanding reputation, while our creativity, integrity, and dependability have kept our clients returning and referring us to others. At Year-Round Landscaping, we prioritize quality customer service. We treat every client as our only client before, during, and after providing our services. We believe in building solid relationships with our clients and ensuring their satisfaction. Whether you need a complete outdoor makeover, indoor renovation, or routine maintenance, we have the expertise and resources to deliver outstanding results. Our team is committed to providing exceptional service and completing every project to the highest standard. To schedule an estimate or consultation, please call us at 248-843-6139 or visit our website at yearoundlandscaping.net.
Year-Around Landscaping. One source, unlimited resources.
For elite carpet, floor, and upholstery cleaning, call Supreme Steam Cleaning. For pressure washing on your house and driveway, call Supreme Steam Cleaning. Flooding in your house or building, Supreme Steam Cleaning's got you covered with our emergency water extraction services. Transform the rooms in your home with floor installation, repairs, and more. Give us a call today at 601-720-5138. That's 601-720-5138. Visit our website, www.supremesteamclean.com, and follow us on social media at Supreme Steam Cleaning. When you need an elite team, call Supreme.
For all facets of professional hair care and braiding, come to Sisters Braid 2, located at 18070 Mount Elliott in Detroit. We specialize in braiding and natural styles, knotless box braids, feed-in braids, scalp twists for men, women, and children. We specialize in all facets of healthy hair. Try our natural oils to keep your hair healthy. 313-826-0498 or 248-372-1738.
Murray, out of the pocket. 7 seconds. 6 seconds. Murray hits it downfield.
Oh, man, the power's out again.
You have reached Quality Construction and Engineering, your #1 emergency generator source.
Power outages can be unpredictable, inconvenient, and disruptive to your life. With a backup generator, your life goes on uninterrupted with power when you need it. Not to mention the peace of mind of having your property suited to weather the storm.
Whoever would have thought in Houston, Texas, that we would have an ice storm? It did happen, and that Sunday night when it came in, I got up and looked out the front door. Everything was pitch black. It was horrible. Something out of a normal science book that you had never seen before. Once the lights went out, my generator popped on. It ran 55 hours. The only one had lights.
Get your backup generator installed with Quality Construction. We install both residential and commercial generators, so you're always covered. Schedule your consultation with us by calling 1-855-876-9370. That's 1-855-876-9370. Or visit us online at www.powerqec.com. That's www.powerqec.com. Financing is available with low monthly payments and 0% interest for 18 months.
That was the best investment that we could have ever made. That's my backup, the generator.
Generators with Quality Construction, built tough enough to weather the storm.
Capital Area Planning Services offers a variety of services catered to your land development needs. We offer landscape design, residential design, land planning, mapping and consulting services, and more. We have over 20 years of design and land planning experience. CAPS LLC offers services to developers, builders, architects, surveyors, contractors, government agencies, and private landowners. Feel free to contact us to find out which services are available in your area. You may reach us at 601-326-2966. That's 601-326-2966. You can also visit us on the web at www.capsllconline.com. Let us put on our thinking caps to serve your land development needs. Online.com. Let us put on our thinking caps to serve your land development needs.
The views and opinions expressed on the following show are not necessarily the views and opinions of WHPS, its affiliates, management, or sponsors.
Brothers and sisters, are you tired of reading the Holy Scripture and not really understanding what you read? And if you're reasonably sure, have you ever tested that what you feel you know with someone that has a different view than your own? Then let's talk with one another. Then let's reason with one another on a Scriptural Discussion with the Son of Man every Wednesday at 9 p.m., Friday at 9 p.m., and Sunday at 12 noon on WHPR TV Detroit Live, 88.1 FM WHPR, and Comcast Cable. Why don't you call and discuss the Holy Bible, and if you have one, the Holy Quran, and come to an agreement about the Holy Scriptures and their true meaning? You can call in live on the air at area code 313-868-4336, 313-868-0342, or 313-868-0351. That's 313-868-4336, 313-868-0342, or 313-868-0351. And now, let's go live with a Scriptural Discussion with the Son of Man.
In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful, the Truthful, and the Most Just, I greet all of you who are hungry and thirsty for the true understanding of the Word of God and for the truth in general. I greet you all with the greeting words of peace. May Allah's Salam Alaikum. I think I need to explain my opening to you in a little more depth. The reason I put it like that was because Allah is the truth. And when you really understand, like the Bible says, the Word was with God, but the Word, it says, and the Word was God. Do you understand? And so we have been reminded in the Bible that, thank you, baby. The Bible also reminds us that there were two Adams. There was actually, you see, when God said, let's make man in our image after our likeness, well, the natural, the natural universe is like the mother, like the woman. It's just waiting for a husbandman to put it in some form. Do you understand? When you look at the scripture, it says in the book of Proverbs. If you turn to the book of Proverbs, it says Proverbs around maybe the, let me see here, the first chapter. And this is the 7th verse. The fear of the Lord. Notice, if you paid attention to David, David said, know ye that the Lord, He is God. Huh? So now you got to, when I read the book, I would never have gotten the understanding of it if Allah hadn't opened my mind to understand it. It's just like the way we speak. I may say, look, I see you, man. And you know, sometimes we say, look, I'll see you. I'll be seeing you. Or I'll see you. When we say I'll see you, that's short. That's an abbreviated term. Well, I'm getting ready to part company with you right now. But I'll see you, instead of saying I'll see you later or whatnot, sometimes we just say, okay, see you. Is that right? And people, excuse me, people that don't have a real command of how English is spoken, they will think that see only has one meaning. And even though it does have one meaning, the meaning is broad. Do you understand? In poker, you say, I'll see you and raise you. Now, I've heard that. I ain't never played poker. Don't know how to play it. But I hear people saying, I'll see you and raise you. And then You got conversations that you have, and you say, I see what you mean. And it's all in how you use it. It's determined what meaning applies to it. Is that right? Well, here it says, the fear of the Lord. You notice, how many times do people go to the doctor and the doctor, when they go there, they are afraid. What are they afraid of? They would say, Doc, there's something wrong with me. And the doctor will do his exam, and he'll come back in there with a somber look on his face. And they are afraid of the truth that he's about to tell them. I didn't hear you. They don't know if they want to hear the truth. Is that right? We all done been there. I done been there. We all done been there. The fear of the truth. It said the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Huh? You notice, when you didn't know, but you know it's something out of order, that you may not like to know what it is, but you got to know. The fear of the Lord, the fear of the truth is the beginning of learning the truth. Huh? You know one truth is that you're hurting. Well, that truth leads you to search for another truth. What's wrong with me? Huh? Yeah. So that's the beginning of finding out things. Is that right? The fear of the truth is the beginning of finding out the answer to what you are afraid of. Huh? Then it says, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. Yeah, they don't want to be told what to do and how to do it. Huh? The doctor may tell you, well, now you're going to have to cut back on that. Remember what the doc told Doc Holliday about his extracurricular activity? He told you, get the hell out of here. But anyway, sometimes people don't want to hear it. But it says, now listen to the 6th chapter of the Holy Quran and go to the 20th verse. It says in chapter 6 and verse 20, it says, those whom we have given the book. Notice it said those whom we have given the book. And Paul, he clears up what that meant when he said, and now we and those actually can be, if you one of those, you can say we. Do you understand? So Paul was one of those that was given prophecy, given divine revelation. I put it like that. But so was Jesus. And so was David. And so was Solomon. And so was Muhammad. And so it says, those whom we have given the book. The book is the Ark of the Covenant. Just like Noah's Ark was the Ark of the farm animals and his family. But the Ark of the Covenant is the Holy Scriptures. Do you understand? And those whom we have given the book recognize him. For they were told, Allah said that he was going to create a mortal. He's going to create a mind in the head of one man. And that's what you notice before they produce, pay attention now. Forget about how your personal feelings for me. This ain't got nothing to do with your personal feeling for me. It has something to do with wanting to know the truth. So listen, and if something I say does not ring true, stop me and we'll discuss it. But before you could produce your first medical school, you had to produce the books that would contain the curriculum to produce your first graduate. Do you understand? And so the first thing you had to do was create the school of thought, the courses of study. Why do we call them courses? It's because if you have a destination, there is a course that you must take to reach that particular destination. Is that right? That's a physical fact. And that's also a spiritual fact. It's just like if I take off and drive to the township of Fayette, I got to take the right course. I get on more than one highway. Do you understand? Likewise, when you trying to take a course, when you trying to become a doctor or an engineer or whatnot, you don't take just one particular course. You have to take some courses. Do you understand? So the messengers of God, they brought the courses. As Paul said, I have finished the course that I'm here to teach. And now a crown is laid up for me. Yeah. Because the mind that was in Paul, the course that was in Paul, when it's absent from Paul, when Paul's body no longer contains that course, that mind or course will be present in the Lord. Do you understand? So, that's what the book said. So now, it says, those whom we have given the book, those whom we have given the courses, recognize him. You notice, the course is now called him because the word is supposed to be made flesh. Do you understand? Just like when you walk across that stage and you get that diploma, they don't call out all them courses that you had to take to get to that stage. They call your name. I didn't hear you. It's just like when I was in the Marine Corps. The DIs called us everything but a child of God. Do you understand? But, I mean, they never referred to us in a respectful tone until it was about 2 weeks before graduation. And then I saw a change in the way the drill instructors was talking to us, all of us who had stuck it out and hadn't failed boot camp. But we was almost at the end of it. And their whole attitudes changed. And most of us, you know, I observe things. And I've always been observant. And then I realized that it wasn't so much as they had changed as we had changed. And so we had become what they was trying to remake us into. Do you understand? And so so all of those extra names they had for us, they stopped calling us. You know. And by the time it was over with, they called us, you know, Marines. Because that's what the boot camp was designed to produce. So when you put the uniform on for the first time, you know, and we was all proud. I was proud of putting on my uniform. So I had become what they respected. And you always want your teachers to respect you. You understand? And they did respect us. And so, you know, that part is just like Jesus, Moses, David, Solomon, all of them. They respect me. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad respected me. Look what he said. He said, I'm expecting him here pretty soon, and I don't want to be so smart to let him come and find me taking over his job. I mean, that's respect. Do you understand? He knew what his teachings was designed to do. His teachings was designed to raise up the Son of Man. And he told them that at the beginning almost of his Theology of Time lectures. In May, he was working towards it. When they opened up that new temple, and in June 4th, he told them at the end of that class, he said, this teaching, as I hinted to you last Sunday, which would have been May the 27th or 28th, he said, this teaching will rise a powerful Son of Truth and the Spirit of Truth from this part of our planet among us who are referred to as the said nation of Islam, among us whom God have raised up. It says, and this will change the whole disposition of worship. You will no longer look to the east for the light of truth to come, because the light of understanding of the Holy Scriptures, which the prophets of the east could not give to you, will come from the west. Do you understand? The west gave you the scripture. The east gave you the scriptures. But the west gave you the understanding of it. Do you understand? That's what the 400 years of slavery was for. That's why it's called a surety. You know, they talk about sureties all the time. A surety is a bond. A bond for what? To get you out of jail. I'm the surety, which was that's what Allah said to Abraham. He said, know of a surety, Abram, that your seed shall be a stranger in a land that's not theirs, because in your seed the whole of humanity is going to be blessed. Why? Because the whole world lieth in sin. And so, Abram, your seed gonna break, your seed gonna do something that I ordered not to be done. Because you were ordered to serve the Lord thy God, and him only shalt thou serve. Worship the Lord thy God, and him only shalt thou serve. But your seed gonna be serving other than God. They're going to be the servants of the devil. And therefore, I'm going to have to forgive them. But because I have to forgive them, then if I'm going to pardon them, I'm going to have to pardon everybody. Do you understand? So that's the surety. that's the surety. But anyway, I'll get into that with you later. That's why people that try to, like racists and people like that, they don't want to talk to me. You know, when you trying to muster up a reason to be hating somebody, and you start having conversations with them and start finding out that you ain't got no reason for that, and you want to hold on to your hatred, you don't want to talk to that person, because they take it from you, take your hatred from you. That's what I do. I take the hatred from people. Haven't you noticed everywhere you go behind me and people find out you're my follower, they treat you kindly? All you have to do is do what I teach you. Ain't nobody going to have no cry against you. We respect everybody. So, look at what it says. Those whom we have given the book recognize him. Now he's calling the book him. Why? Because the book is the courses of study. Well, who is the first graduate? Son of man, take the book and eat it up. Study to show yourself approved unto your tutors. See, if you can find something in Jesus' teachings, or Moses, or David, or Solomon, or Muhammad, or any of their, Jeremiah, if you can find something in their teachings that disapprove of me, then I'm not what I think I am. I had to be approved by them. Study to show thyself approved unto the one that the word was with. And the word was with God. So he called them gods. So, it says study to show thyself approved unto God, a workman that needeth not to be ashamed. I mean, if you tell me, turn the scripture so and so, I'm not ashamed to go to it. Because I'm not doing things that I got to be afraid to go and read what the scripture said. No. I'm on the right side of the scripture. Son of man, sit on my right hand. That's what it said. And so, they recognize him as they recognize their sons. Now, go back to read what Proverbs say, the first chapter. It says, the fear of the Lord, this is the 7th verse, is the fear of the truth is the beginning of knowledge. But fools despise wisdom and instruction. My son, see? What did he say? My son. Here, Allah opened up my ears and made me to hear. He said, my son, hear the instruction of thy father, and forsake not the law of Mother Nature, of thy mother. Huh? Now you see why I say, when I open up, I say to those of you, and I greet all of you who are here in the belief, or who are hungry and thirsty for the true understanding of the Word of God, spiritual word. That's what the Holy Bible, the Word of God, is the word of the ones that this book was with. And for the truth in general, which is of nature, the natural knowledge. God didn't just make the spiritual mind, he made the natural mind first. How you know he made it? Show me something that the white man had dominion over that the truth didn't give him dominion over. That's why anyone who would not, when this pandemic hit this country, anyone who would not listen to the guidance of, I don't care how white his skin is, if God saw fit to trust him and put him in charge, who am I to question that? I didn't hear you. You got more nerve than the angels. When the angels questioned it, and God told him, surely I know what you know not. Yeah, and that was the end of that. And he instructed the natural man to inform the angels of the names of things that they didn't know the name of. Huh? And then told them, did I not say that I know what you know not? Huh? And guess who said that to him? Adam did. So when they told us to put on masks, we put on masks. When they told us to get the vaccine, when it became available, we went and got the vaccine. See, what you don't realize is that the devil, he knows what Allah gave him authority to do. When I follow the truth, I ain't following the white man. I'm following the truth. When you follow the truth, you following Allah. Anyway, like, I showed you in Allah's word that you're supposed to follow and submit to me. If you don't do it, it ain't me you ain't obey. Allah will say to you, why didn't you submit to him whom I created with both my hands? What you gonna say then? I tell you what you gonna do. You're gonna bend over and kiss your behind goodbye. That's what you're gonna do. Because I told you. And I showed it to you in many ways. Now, you remember I told you I'll show you an example. In the Holy Quran, it tells you notice now, when the angels visited Lot, what did the people of Sodom say about the angels?
Bring those men out here that we may know them.
Okay. They say, bring them men out here. And no man in heaven, nor in the earth, nor under the earth. No man in the heavenly knowledge, no man in the earthly knowledge, no man who had lived and died was able to open these books. Do you understand? That's why Allah said he had to create one. So he created me and then made me complete. Spiritual and natural. That's why you notice when I was talking to the sound like a white sister last night, and I reminded her that, look, I'm not a person who didn't pay attention when I was in school. I didn't like school, but when I was there, I paid attention. You cannot create matter, nor can you destroy matter. And when you think about it, mathematics teach you that. What is 0 plus 0?
Zero plus 0 is 0.
Okay. Now 0 is a representation of what?
Nothing.
Nothing. Then if 0 was here in the beginning, what would be here now?
Nothing.
You can't create something from nothing. And if you say you did that, then where did you come from? Ain't you something? And God himself said, from everlasting to everlasting. The only thing I know that's everlasting is this matter that we see around us. The material that you see around you, everything that's here has always been here. It just has not always been in the same form, but it has been here. Do you understand? Likewise, we don't create the truth. The truth is subject matter. We don't create the truth. We discover the truth, and then we, with the help of the truth, we form the thought into a communicative form. Do you understand? 2 plus 2 was 4 before we could articulate that. You say, well, it might have been something else. Well, whatever we called it, it was still going to be what it was. Do you understand? A rose by any other name, it still smells just as sweet, and it's still the same thing, no matter what you call it. You decide what you want to call it, but it's still that particular thing. Yes. So now, as we look at that, you remember I told you if America is going to be saved, this is white people's country. And if it's going to be saved, white people are going to have to do it, especially since it's white people that's trying to tear it up. Do you understand that? So, I want to let you hear this young man, you know, that I'm very proud of his stand that he have taken. I just hope that they ain't took it too late. You know, let's see here. It's kind of long, so I'm going to speed it up a little bit. So you know, because I want to play it off for you, and I want to try not to interrupt him. He says some things I don't agree with, but that's not the issue. The main thing is that he understands that America is at a crossroads here. And not just with Donald Trump, but with someone who may come after him to try to do the same thing. You got to send a message, man. Anyway.
Sunday, April 21, 2024. I'm Anthony Davis. Welcome to the Weekend Show, where we make the time to consider the news of the week. You can support my work and independent journalism at patreon.com/5minutenews. Our guest today is a former Trump staffer turned anonymous whistleblower who exposed the former president's misconduct while in office. His book, Blowback, is the product of almost 100 conversations with former Trump officials and warns of the danger of a second Trump presidency. Miles Taylor, welcome to the Weekend Show.
It's great to be with you, my friend.
So firstly, I want to talk about the role of the whistleblower and how, for me...
Now, that's a young man. Now that's where your patriotic spirit gonna have to be. In your young people that are willing to take a stand like George Washington them. George Washington wasn't no old man when he stood for his people. Do you understand? If your young people don't stand up for this country, it's doomed.
as a European, seeing the US through a European lens, whistleblowers, I found in America, seem to be looked down upon, whereas where I'm from, they are celebrated and worthy of medals of honor. So, obviously it takes a lot to want to blow the whistle, especially when you describe yourself as a lifelong conservative and somebody who was working in national security. So just if you can explain how, I think not just yourself, but other people who Trump might refer to as the deep state are able to maintain their role no matter who the administration is, but then feel the need to go against their own political allegiance and speak up.
There's a lot to unpack there, and hopefully this will be valuable to the folks that are listening. And as we were talking about in the green room, Anthony, this is definitely going to be the most watched and most listened to episode ever. And I don't know if you announced this, Midas Touch is offering up a Lamborghini for one guest that listens to the show this week. No, I'm kidding. Look, I've struggled with the word whistleblower and whether I even am one or not. I mean, when you come forward, not just in politics to sound the alarm, but really in anything now, you are met instantly with crowdsourced opinions, sometimes violently.
Understand something. I got to bring this out. That's an old trick in warfare. It's to rename your opponent. To speak out like what Rusty Bowers did. Rusty Bowers told the people that he supported Donald Trump and voted for him. He said, and he voted for him both times. He said, but when Trump called and asked him to violate his oath, he said, that I'm not going to do for anyone. Do you understand? He didn't go on to say, well, he was sorry that he didn't realize how, that he never should have supported Trump in the first place. But you can rest assured that didn't sit well with him when he realized that Donald Trump did not respect the Constitution. Do you understand? When you don't have everyday dealings with someone, there's a lot of things about that person you don't know. Rusty Bowers wasn't up there in the White House. Do you understand that? But, so, it's just like when people that was in the mafia saw certain things, they just say, I done had enough of this. This don't work. Huh? And then they decide to help the government by testifying. So they rename that person a rat. Or whatever. So people, instead of calling this young man what he really is a patriot. Do you understand? He decided to remember that he didn't take an oath to support a president. I don't care if the president did bring him into his cabinet or into his staff. The president took an oath to uphold the Constitution, just like he did. And if the president violates that oath and he sees that, now he got a choice to make. Are you going to support treason? Or are you going to speak out against it? Or are you going to stand up against it? It's kind of, you know what you could compare that to? Is you walking down the street with your mama and somebody, some rapist or whatnot, come after your mama. And your daddy is with them trying to help him. Would you let that happen? You find out this man ain't never really been your daddy. Do you know why they called George Washington the father of this country? How many did they call? See, y'all done misunderstood, and you're gonna hear him talking about the businessman running the country and whatnot. But the reason George Washington is called the father of this country is because George Washington, first of all, George Washington, he may have been a businessman of sort, but George Washington was a farmer. Aren't he? According to history that they taught me, he was a farmer. And George Washington had a family. Who best to be over a nation of families than a man that understands families? Yet you got people that's been lied to and told that you run a country like a business. Then why wasn't George Washington referred to in history as the CEO of our country? Fathers are titles that men who have families wear. Fathers wear that title. Even God is called a father. He's not called no CEO. You don't run your household like you run a business. And you notice, I offered you $50,000 if you can see me giving some bad advice to people. Come and show me what the advice that I'm giving now, the advice I'm giving, show me how it's wrong. You keep talking about you need a businessman to run the country when that's one of the biggest problems now. Most of your businessmen don't even want to pay their fair share of taxes. They don't want to have no oversight on how they conduct business. Ain't none of the government's business how I to conduct my business. What if your business and the way you conducting it is harming the people? Well, you can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs. Those are acceptable losses. You had some fool sitting there in Texas calling himself a lieutenant governor or something, telling the old people, y'all need to go on and just bite the bullet. And if you get COVID, you get it, and just keep the commerce going, save the economy. And go on, you don't live long enough. Huh? Just gone completely insane. Well, anyway, this young man, at least he's awake now to the clear and present danger that Donald Trump represents and people who support him represent to this fragile republic that ain't but 200 and approximately 50 years old.
Sometimes just violent. And I was called everything. A traitor and a hero and a disgruntled employee by the president and a savior of democracy. And I don't think I'm any of those things. I don't think I'm a hero. I don't think I'm a traitor. I think I just did my job. And that job was more than just being the chief of staff of a government department. That job was being an American public servant. And as everyone knows, you don't swear allegiance to the President of the United States. You swear allegiance to the Constitution. And so the point at which you are being asked to do things that are literally by definition legally anti-constitutional is when your obligation supersedes your boss. And the only authority you are accountable to if something is in contravention of the Constitution or the American people themselves. They are the sovereign. They are the voters. They are the ones to decide whether to rehire or fire the person who executes the laws of the United States. And, you know, in that standpoint, if coming forward to reveal that anti-constitutional activity makes me a traitor, then I'm a traitor. You know, and if it makes me a whistleblower, then I'm a whistleblower. But, you know, one of the things I've found, Anthony, in wrestling with this term is that people who end up falling into that category, like you said, of whistleblower, are being treated very differently right now in the United States. There is a lot of animosity towards the folks who have come out to disclose Donald Trump's behavior and his inclinations towards illegality. But, you know, you interview each of those people, which I did for Blowback. Almost all of them that have come forward and spoken out about it, I interviewed them. And one of the first questions I had for all of my peers that have gotten into this mess is, would you do it again? And I did not expect the universality of the answer that I received from those people, almost to a person. And we're talking about people who've lost their homes and their jobs and everything, people who've just blown up their lives to turn against the guy. Almost to a person, they've said, yes, I would do it again. And I think that's one of the few hallmarks.
That is a historical statement of patriots. Was it Nathan Hale that when he was spying for Washington them and got caught, and they was about to put him to death? Did he say if he had it to do all over again, he wouldn't do it? Or did he say the only regret he had was that he didn't have but one life that he could give for his country? I always admired that. Even in elementary school, I knew the gravity of that. That could I have said, could I have did that? As much as we love life, this man thought it was worth his life. It's like Jesus. Jesus didn't want to die. He prayed that he wouldn't have to suffer that, didn't he? But in the end, he did just like Abraham. Abraham would have rather went and sacrificed himself, but he was told to sacrifice his son. Twice. First with Ishmael, leave him out there in the wilderness. He went and did it. Take Isaac up there and sacrifice him to me. And he was about to do that. But if the cause require me to give my life, then I just have to give my life. Rather than destroy my own opinion of myself as a man. It hurts when other people have a low opinion of you. But it's deadly when you got that low opinion of yourself. When you didn't do what you know you should have. The conscience can really whip you to death. Huh? So, the young man, when he asked others, would they do it again? And all of them said, yes, I'd do it again. He said, I've been threatened before. I know how it feels when you stand up and you speak out against wrong and all the wrongdoers like wolves. That's what the book says. I send you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves. That's what it says. All a wolf is a wild dog, a glorified dog. Do you understand? A glorified despiser of God. When you despise, when you hate people that stand for truth and stand for justice and stand for righteousness, you hate God. You are a dog, according to Scripture. And you know a dog is a natural coward. Why you think they run in packs? Why you think wolves hunt in packs and they find one particular creature and gang up on them? That's the nature of a wolf. Huh? That hyena is a ferocious booger. But if he want to go up against a lion, he get 20 of them. He get about 20 of them to try that lion. But if another lion run up there, they go. They get out of there. So, let me tell you something. That young man, you look at him good. That's the hope. People like him is the hope for your country. If I was you, I would listen to him.
Of a whistleblower that I found is that despite all of the blowback, which is the term of the book, but despite all the blowback that can come from it, people still feel like going and telling the truth was more valuable. That is a powerful message to me, and again, is not something that I thought was a foregone conclusion as I started to huddle with some of these folks.
Just explain.
Remember Cassidy Hutchinson? She won by 26. Young people, young patriots that could admire you because they thought you was rich and a businessman, but they found out that you ain't nothing. And they stood up and spoke up for their country.
It's actually a term used to describe unintended consequences within the realm of national security, right?
Yeah, originally that term was used a lot in the world that I spent most of my career in the national security realm, and usually blowback is meant to signify the unintended consequences of when you fail to see around a corner. So if you're deploying a convoy into somewhere like Somalia to go intercept a terrorist suspect, if you fail to plan correctly for that mission or fail to take certain elements into account, you might experience blowback. It might mean the convoy gets attacked or ambushed. And I've expropriated the term into this world that we are walking into as a country. Namely, if we fail to anticipate what will happen if we return Donald Trump to the White House, then we could suffer the unintended consequences. The blowback could be quite severe. And quite frankly, Anthony, the book was born out of a lot of frustration. And I don't want to knock my peers that have spoken out from the Trump administration, but generally a lot of people left that administration and went and wrote self-laudatory books about just how amazing they were. And too few were painting a picture for us of what could happen if that guy came back to power. And so finally I said, I'm just going to go do it. I'm going to go paint as lucid of a portrait as I can of what a second term would look like under Donald Trump or a savvier successor if he doesn't make it back into the White House, because that's what we need to foresee in order to prevent blowback. We need someone to give us a little bit of a crystal ball and say, here's what the guy will do, so we can make that choice in November with very, very clear eyes. And so that's what I set out to do with this. And it's not the book I wanted to write. I did not want to write this book. I don't want to be promoting this book. I don't want to be talking about it because I never anticipated we would be so foolish to put ourselves back in this same damn predicament. but we have. And so it's important to talk honestly about what the repercussions will be.
I want to talk about the danger of a future Trump presidency a little bit later, but first I want to talk about this polarization that means that there are a core Trump support, or a core number of Trump supporters who see you as somebody who's done the wrong thing rather than the right thing. And that is due to this compartmentalization where people think that you're either in one camp or the other. If you say anything bad about Donald Trump, you must be a Democrat or a snowflake or something. There's very little gray. It's all black and white in the narrative, and the media does play into that as well. So let's just talk about this notion. And I mean, we've heard similar from Alexander Vindman, for example, who was listening on the phone call when Trump tried to extort Vladimir Zelensky. He was just doing his job. He didn't feel like he was being a whistleblower either. And yet, because Trump was the president, he saw it as an anti-Trump action rather than something that had a higher cause. So just to react to this notion that because I'm very keen to define what Trump is trying to say is the deep state, and make people realize that actually the federal government is made up of really very good people, no matter their political allegiance.
Well, it is, and look, I will start off by saying I remain.
Let me say this. That term, never Trumper, and anti-Trump, and all of that kind of thing. If you have, I remember when I used to smoke, and I continued to smoke even when they had the sign on the side of there, because the government made them put it on there. Caution. Cigarette smoking may be hazardous to your health. I kept smoking. So people oftentimes they ignore warnings. Sometimes we get away with it if we eventually heed it. And if we don't eventually heed it, we run into what it warned us about. Do you understand? Okay. But it is justice to at least, if people selling you poison, that they put that on there somewhere. It's poison. Do you understand? I mean, Fox News put it all over it was all over the airways. If you closed your eyes to it, fine. But it was all over the airways that Fox News is not a news station, it's a propaganda station. They had to pay $780 million for lying. I told you a long time ago, Fox News means trick news. What do you mean when you say you outfoxed somebody?
You mean y'all tricked?
Yes. They was trying to put one over on you, and you did it to them first. Do unto others for they do unto you. That's right. That's where that statement come from. So now, you get a chance, look up the what you call look at the Omega Code. Let me see. I got two of them here. Let me see which one that the one you need to really look at. Give me a minute here. I'll bring it up in a minute. I think it's Megiddo, the Omega Code.
You take care of yourself.
Yes. So look up Megiddo, the Omega Code, and you'll learn some things there. Then we'll talk about it if you look it up. Then we'll come back and talk about it later. In just a moment.
And it was a great personal cost to you as well, losing your job in the private sector.
It was Chernobyl to my personal life. But then I looked to my left. In our country, the cost of dissent, of speaking up, it's super high. Yes, it cost me everything back by also telling the truth. So put in a much more simple way, cowardice is contagious, but courage is also contagious. And folks are more inclined, backfired. It actually accelerated the chaos. And that's why I think it's really important. This were quote unquote anonymous. They all could have written the op-ed that I wrote. The revelations backfired. And it's one of the things that I say in this book is, that's why I did it. I was not stupid in doing that. I did it because I know people are so attracted to a place. Ironically, I might agree with the former president, is I think people like me made it a little bit easier for him to make that case. Now, I initially leveled my accusations against the president anonymously, and that did two things. One, and I still believe this, one, it drew a ton of public attention to those revelations. That's why I did it. I was not stupid in doing that. I did it because I know people are so attracted to a spectacle that writing those opinions anonymously would force them to get attention. It was the most.
So now he's telling you that he realized in hindsight that he should have came out face to face and let people know who he was and that he was telling the truth on Donald Trump and not hiding and saying it. Do you understand? Because if you hiding and saying it, people can twist it and to make it look like you lying on them. And that's why you won't show yourself. Do you understand? Why you think I come out here in the public and say what I got to say? If you're telling the truth, and if you're the right one to tell it, then God didn't give us the spirit of bondage. He gave me the spirit of boldness. I ain't got to whisper and say what I got to say. And I don't care if the crook hear me. He care if I hear him. Let me tell you something. You hear people all the time talking about something that they refer to as the quality of life. And that if they can't be themselves and do what they would normally do and whatnot, they'd rather just go on. I don't want nobody having to sit by my bed and change me if I boo-boo on myself and all that old kind of stuff. That ain't living. Likewise, the highest form that I know of in the universe is what Allah cast me in, man. If I can't be that, well then I ain't living. Manhood. I mean, look, man. We are not the physically strongest thing on this planet. Lions, tigers, and bears would wear us out in a wrestling match. One-on-one, we don't win. I didn't hear you. But we create, we think, and create. And we have all them so-called strong creatures fleeing from us. Huh? If a lion's stupid enough to attack man, he's committing suicide. Do you understand? We ain't gonna have no beast running around here preying on us. Ain't gonna happen. And after a while, those that's, if he resists the devil, and what will he do? We make any delusional creature start running from us. Is that right? Yeah. So, man, you got no business letting people frighten you into going against your conscience. When you know what's right, stand for what's right, regardless to how many people standing against you. Stand for what's right. And know that you are never alone, even if you look like you alone. God is with you. Stand for what's right.
Opinion piece in the history of the New York Times. I got their attention. But it did a second thing, is it gave Trump ammunition to say, look at these cloak and dagger people in the deep state. He was able to turn that anonymity against me and to reinforce his narrative. And it's one of the reasons why at the time I said I'm eventually going to come forward and unmask myself before the election, is because I was worried he would only weaponize this. The veil was just meant to draw people's attention long enough to focus on the message instead of the messenger. But if you stay in the shadows too long, you do reinforce that narrative of, people who are scheming. And so I felt like it was important to come forward. And again, in some ways, ironically, the revelations backfired. And it's one of the things that I say in this book is, it sounds funny coming from me, but I think one of the biggest threats to our democracy is anonymity. And let me explain to you what I mean. It's the willingness of people to express a strong moral view in private and be scared to do it in their own names in public. That's what got us into this mess. In the Republican Party, most of my peers were quote-unquote anonymous. They all could have written the op-ed that I wrote. They all felt the same way about Trump. But everyone was scared shitless to do it. And the consequence of that is that we elected the man. And we might re-elect the man because there's still so many people in the hierarchy of the Republican Party who share my views in private but won't say them publicly. And so anonymity is a danger. I learned that the hard way because ironically, when I came forward anonymously and I said, the president's cabinet is keeping him in check, and we are restraining his worst impulses. Do you know what Donald Trump's response was to that? He went and fired almost all of the adults in the room. And I found out much later from people like Stephanie Grisham, who was his comms director. Stephanie said, oh yeah, he would talk about it all the time in the Oval Office. Everyone who walked in that door, he would ask us afterwards, do you think that was anonymous? Do you think that was anonymous? And he systematically started to essentially exterminate the adults in the room, so that by the end of the first term, it was a lot of sycophants. And so in some ways, my plan backfired. It actually accelerated the chaos. And that's why I think it's really important this cycle for folks not to play games. Don't give the off-the-record quotes on how dangerous this man is. Come forward, own it. Let's have a real conversation and be a little bit civically courageous.
And it was a great personal cost to you as well, losing your job in the private sector, losing a relationship, addiction. There was a whole, the ramifications of speaking out were significant, and we're even seeing that at the moment. I mean, I'm glued to the select committee hearing on Boeing and whistleblowers at Boeing, after those two crashes and then a plug door blowing out, and you can see the nervousness even in the Boeing employees who still have their jobs for fear of retribution there. To speak up in this country does require an enormous amount of strength, doesn't it?
It requires some element of something. Maybe it's strength, maybe it's a moment of craziness to come forward, but I think it requires something more. And it's not necessarily from the person who makes the disclosure, it's from the rest of us. And that is, it's easier to go out and tell the truth if you know that other people are going to have your back by also telling the truth. So put it in a much more simple way, cowardice is contagious, but courage is also contagious. And folks are more inclined to go make honest revelations, to tell the truth and speak the truth, if they think it's not costly to speak the truth. And I say this a lot in front of, when I speak to audiences of students, who are, in college and taking econ class, I tell them, look, think of supply and demand curves. In any marketplace, if the price of something's really high, if the cost of it is really high, there's only two ways to lower the cost. And right now, in our country, the cost of dissent, of speaking up, is super high. Yes, it cost me everything. So, okay, how do you lower that price? There's only two ways, econ tells us. One, you can either decrease the demand for something, and the price goes down. But we don't really want to decrease the demand for truth, because that's kind of dumb. Like, we don't want to live in a world of lies. So the only other way, mathematically, is you have to increase the supply. That's the only way you get the price to go down. In this case, we need to
He forgot to, which he's been saying, but what he should have added to that was, the cost of speaking out is high. But the cost of not speaking out is the loss of your republic. You willing to pay that price for not speaking out? They got an old saying. Evil people succeed because good people, the supposedly good people, sit back and do nothing. You sitting on your cushion talking about, I'm going to pray and everything God going to make all this go away. Yeah? The devil's people is busy making stuff happen. Did you honestly think that it was going to just all go away while you just sit there looking instead of getting up doing something? The least you could do is speak out against it. Prophet Muhammad said that. If a righteous person sees injustice, they should do one of three things, but better, all three. Hate it in their heart, speak out against it, and work to change it with their hands. If God be for you, of whom are you afraid? If you claim to have God with you, and make no mistake, if the truth is with you, if the truth is in your favor, then God is with you. Now are you with him? Because you got a choice to make. Are you going to fear them? You going to fear what man can do? Or are you going to fear what God can do? I'm more afraid of what's going to happen to me if I don't speak up and tell the truth to you than what's going to happen to me from your hands if I do speak up. Because I know you can't do nothing to me without Allah letting you do it.
The supply of dissent. And it sounds like a kindergarten lesson, but it's real. If in our own communities we're scared to speak up and tell the truth about the craziness in our politics, well, then the price of dissent is going to be pretty high for the person that does. They're going to go get stoned by the extremists. But if everyone kind of bands together, the price goes down, the cost goes down. It's not as hard for the next person, the next person, the next person to dissent. And I learned this through trial and error. I probably tried every wrong way to do the right thing before landing on the right one. And in the course of that, I did learn that finally coming forward in my own name had that effect on some of my friends and peers who I was waiting to come forward. It was the classic bystander phenomenon where people are on a subway train in New York and someone's getting the shit kicked out of them and no one steps forward. Why? Because no one else had already stepped forward. They're all waiting for each other. Once I made my revelations, yes, did it detonate my personal life? Catastrophically. It was Chernobyl to my personal life. But then I looked to my left and my right, and I had peers who had been thinking about doing the same finally ring me up on the phone and say, let's do it. I'm in. Like, I'll make a video. I'll come forward. That was a powerful moment for me, and it showed it takes a tribe of the tribeless, if you will, to be able to make that more and more possible. And I actually think we're breaking through. I mean, and I don't just mean anti-Trumpers. I think generally folks who are willing to dissent are going and having people's backs. And privately, I've never said this before. I mean, I do this when I see other people come forward, not just in politics, but in other situations and blow the whistle and do something tough. I often try to reach out to those folks and say, hey, look, I'm happy to give you some private advice on, look, how to protect your family, how to protect your friends, what to do next. Like, I've been through this, but also just to say, you're not alone. You are in a fraternity now of people who are doing the right thing, and that fraternity or sorority is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Welcome. Don't kick yourself for having done it. That's important for all of us to do when we see someone speak up, even in just the workplace or the classroom.
So let's shine that light on the current GOP and the way in which, I mean, even people like Mitch McConnell, who got up after January 6th and blamed Donald Trump, you know, in very clear language, has now endorsed him. We've seen a few Congress people hand in their notice, won't be rejoining next time. Bit of a cowardly way to exit stage left, in my opinion. But in terms of the people that have stood up to Donald Trump, you can really count them on one hand. Obviously, Liz Cheney, Adam Kinzinger, who you know. But I also feel like there is this kind of cult-like mentality amongst the leadership. It's not just the base, the people wearing the MAGA hats, but the cult-like mentality amongst the political leaders, the Congress people, the senators. So could you just talk to those people, and why is it? I mean, I should just say very quickly, I've been reading old Ronald Reagan speeches. Don't ask me why. But I was reading one yesterday about some remarks he made at a Senate Republican Unity dinner in November 1984. And the line that really caught my eye, halfway through the speech, he said, "And I know that we Republicans will stick together as united as the Union our party long ago fought to preserve." Is this the issue, really? Is that actually Republicans behind the scenes in leadership have a plan that you never criticize the leader and you band together no matter what?
Well, I mean, look,
Ronald Reagan obviously didn't understand history. The military wasn't just full of Republicans. The Union Army were filled with patriots. And those was Americans that was fighting against people who decided that they did not want to be Americans. Since the name American and the United States became synonymous. Do you understand? So, to try to reduce the Union into a party is misleading. Is counter to the Constitution and to George Washington's farewell address, where he told you about the baneful effect of parties. Do you understand? You didn't get to where you are today by one party or the other party. You got together and worked your way to where you are. And you were doing fine until you decided to trash it and become partisan. You let people who call themselves Tea Party come in and take over a true party. Because you cared more about votes than you did about who it was casting them votes. And now you're about to lose your democratic republic.
I'd be fair here because I think both the political parties in this country have that problem. It's not as pronounced and extreme at the moment on the left, but you saw people when Nancy Pelosi was speaker. Sometimes moderates who tried to stand up against the whatever they call them, the crew, the clan,
the squad.
What am I thinking of? The squad. People who stood up against the squad sometimes got shot down, and there was a little bit of silence in there. I mean, this happens in politics. Politics is tribal. But I think what we're seeing right now in the Republican Party is without any precedent in the history of the Republic. That might sound hyperbolic to some ears. Take it from me, having spent my life inside the party. There ain't nothing to compare to this. Not even George Washington. He didn't even command this level of cultish adulation as Donald Trump does. And, there's something I write about in the book, Anthony, that I think exemplifies this, is that when Trump was president, a couple of times he tweeted a pretty crazy thing. He kept comparing himself weirdly, to Abraham Lincoln and Ronald Reagan, and I didn't understand it at the time. If there was a poll about his support within the GOP, you'd go find these tweets. It's like 93% of Republicans supported him, and he would tweet it and he'd say, "I'm more popular than Reagan was in the Republican Party or Lincoln." Leaving aside the fact that there were no opinion polls within the Republican Party of Lincoln at the time, but let's just take him at his word. I thought this was crazy at the time that he kept trying to compare himself to other Republicans. And I realized it was born of his insecurity. But much later I realized something more significant, is those claims he was making weren't absurd. They were spot on. He was right. Donald Trump realized something that most of us conservatives didn't, which is that he was commanding a different type of adulation than even a Reagan or perhaps even a Lincoln had commanded within the party, because people were literally worshiping him, and they still do. They have made Trump a part of their religion. I mean,
they have did Donald Trump like the Confederacy did Jefferson Davis. They made him their standard bearer. They made him their president. And they did not respect Abraham Lincoln, and these people did not respect Joe Biden. Do you understand?
Who've been so heavily radicalized by this man that they won't accept any frank descriptions of things that people like I have seen about him behind the scenes. They just refuse to believe it. They cover their ears. This man can do no wrong. We didn't see the deification of Ronald Reagan like that. Maybe you could make an argument that Lincoln in his...
He told you, but you wasn't listening either. See, he wasn't listening either. But Donald Trump read the snake, and at the end of it, he said to the, "Oh, shut up, silly woman," said the reptile with a grin, "You knew damn well I was a snake before you took me in." Do you understand? And then he said, does that make sense? Huh? Howard Stern understood. He said, "I don't blame Donald. I blame you for voting for him." He said, "I hate you for voting for him." Donald just Donald. He never hid his true character. His true character is on display for the whole world. You just didn't give a damn. You're too busy envying him, even though the book says, "Be thou not envious of evildoers." That's there in Psalms. That's the first chapter of Psalms, if I recall. Let's see here. I likes to make sure. It says, "Blessed is the man," this is the first chapter, "blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly." When you walk not in the counsel of somebody, you don't let that person tell you what to do. Do you understand? But they're letting Donald Trump tell them what to do. They still doing that. Claim they wanted something done about the border. And then when they came up with a policy for the border, Donald Trump told them, "Don't fix it right now. Let it go until so we can use it later in the election and in the campaign." Blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful, but his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law doth he meditate day and night. And let me see here. Where's this? Be not envious of evildoers. Proverbs chapter what? 24. It says in the first verse, "Be not thou envious against evil men, neither desire to be with them. So all them people that go out to them rallies of Trump's, you got it coming to you. You watch what I tell you. Allah gonna fix you. Yeah. So you go on and keep supporting evil. Keep patting evil people on the back. Keep on wishing evil people Godspeed. Yeah, may God speed your behind the hell. So anyway,
in a sort of martyrdom state for the Union, was treated with that level of reverence. But even then, the things that we're seeing from within the party, you can't find historical analog for folks falling over themselves to line up behind the guy, despite privately portraying a very, very, very different opinion of the man. So I do think it's remarkable. I think Trump is right in the fact that his support is greater in some ways than those former presidents. And that's actually something for us to worry about, because our founders worried, and they wrote extensively about the danger of a demagogue assuming power.
They pretend not to agree with Donald Trump, and then their actions belie them. Do you understand? Yeah, they may tell you in private, "Hey, man, he wrong," but they saying that to please you. But, eventually, you're going to all turn on each other. I'm just telling you that right now. If you study the history of tyrants and dictators, they become paranoid. Next thing you know, the people who follow them, when at some point you're going to disagree. I done seen couples get married and they be so much claiming to be in love, and the next thing you know, they fighting like cats and dogs. And that's just the way it is. When Allah is not in between you, when the truth is not holding you together, you're going to be enemies. You just don't know it yet. But it's coming. Just like when Michael Cohen said he would take a bullet for Donald Trump. We all heard him say that. Seen him talking about how much he cared and loved Donald Trump. Now he hates Donald Trump. That is the way it is. See, pretty soon you start realizing that just like you was using him, you find out when you be honest, you was using him to accomplish something. Michael Cohen was using Donald Trump to be up there with him. Do you understand? And he found out Donald Trump was using him too. And Donald Trump wouldn't take no bullet for him. And Donald Trump didn't care nothing about him, but for what he could use him for. Just like all he care about these people who are out there at them rallies. He don't give a damn about them people. Of course, they don't really give a damn about him, but for what they can use him for. Do you understand? Hitler had people that was with him, and eventually they had 6 assassination attempts on Adolf Hitler. Let's see if I can find it. People don't know nothing about history. They walking around here blind, deaf, and dumb. Let's see here. Let me see what the. Let's give me a minute here. I might can pull it up for you. When you get in touch with reality, then you find out that reality ain't your enemy. Reality is your friend. Give me a minute. Let's see. Here it is.
Beer hall skirmish to a conspiracy by a cabal of Nazi dissidents. Learn the stories behind 6 assassins who nearly succeeded in killing Hitler. 1. 1921. The Munich Beer Hall Melee. The first attempt on Hitler's life occurred nearly 20 years before the start of World War II. In November 1921, the young and still largely unknown radical made a speech at Munich's famed Hofbräuhaus Beer Hall. Along with members of the newly formed Nazi Party, the crowd also included dozens of social democrats, communists, and other political opponents. Hitler's fiery rhetoric had soon whipped them all into a frenzy. A drunken brawl broke out, and while the fists, beer steins, and chairs were flying, a group of unknown assailants drew pistols and fired several shots in the direction of the speaker's podium. Hitler was unhurt, however, and he even continued ranting for another 20 minutes until police arrived. The future dictator's brush with death only increased his zeal for the Nazi cause. 2 years later, the nearby Burger Brokeler would be the site of the start of his infamous beer hall putsch, a failed coup that won him national attention and a multi-year jail sentence. 2. 1938. Maurice Bavaud's plot. In late 1938, a Swiss theology student named Maurice Bavaud bought a pistol and began stalking Hitler across Germany. Bavaud was convinced the so-called Führer was a threat to the Catholic Church and an incarnation of Satan, and he considered it his spiritual duty to gun him down. He finally got his chance on November 9, 1938, when Hitler and other Nazi leaders marched through Munich to celebrate the anniversary of the...
And what happened in the end? Hitler wound up committing suicide. And a lot of them people who was helping him murder those innocent people that he had turned into scapegoats, the Jews, he had turned them into his scapegoats and decided he was going to build his army and his philosophy up around murdering them people. They helped him do it. But the one thing about getting in bed with evil, see, once you sell yourself to an evil cause, you can't get out. Because now you become the enemy of that cause, and they go after you. And then some of his generals was going after him. You see, there is no honor in people who do dishonorable things. Just like Rusty Bowers, if he had known who he was really supporting there instead of supporting his party at that time, you assume that the person at the top of your party deserves honor. I didn't hear you. But assuming is the wrong thing in this day and time. You better know who you supporting. Because if you're one of those kind of people that just follow the crowd, and when you follow a party, you follow in the crowd. generally. Whatever my party want to do, that's what I'm going to do. Well, that was fine at one time. But now, what about when your party gets hijacked? If somebody hijacked the plane that you own, do you just accept that? Because they done changed your destination. They ain't going to where you wanted to go. Do you accept that? Or do you look for any opportunity that you can to take that plane back? Okay. The only way you're going to take your party back is you better get with the Democrats, elect all Democrats, and take the power away from them people. And then all of you all who are really Republicans, you get back together and re-elect sane people, patriotic people who care about the country and not about how much money they can make by robbing you and selling their loyalty to the highest bidder. So now you suit yourself. Let me show you something. I like to. So that young man, he said he's voting for Biden, not because he agreed with everything Biden gonna do, but he knows Joe Biden care about this country.
United States, and they actually tried to design the Department of the Executive to be somewhat resistant to that type of person. And those guardrails failed. We ended up electing a Donald Trump, and I think now we're witnessing exactly what they had warned about. And unfortunately, I'm not convinced those guardrails will be able to hold in a second term. That really, that last final guardrail is the electorate. And if the electorate can't save us from a second Donald Trump term, I will tell you, nothing can. The judiciary, the legislative branch, they won't be able to resist the corrupt behavior that we will see infuse the executive in a second term. And I say that in all seriousness.
I want to expand on that in just a moment and talk about who you believe Trump to be behind the scenes. We're going to take a quick break. We'll come back and do that next here on The Weekend Show. I'm excited to tell you about Moink. That's Moo plus Oink. Moink is a meat subscription box company on a although not covered as much as I would like, but there we are. Tell us about, from working in the administration, the stuff that you write about in the book is compelling. It's almost like a thriller. The way the book reads like a thriller in that way. Government should not work like that. It's supposed to be boring. It's supposed to be administrative. Just talk to us about how Trump behaved and the things that he was stopped from doing that you describe that he will certainly do on his tour of retribution if he was to win a second term.
Well, if you really, really, really want to understand this man, you have to listen to his words and take them seriously. And I'm going to make a comparison here that fellow conservatives would cry foul about, but it's to Osama bin Laden. And no, Donald Trump is not bin Laden. In some ways, I think he's doing more damage to American democracy. But I'm going to make the comparison because the reason we underestimated Osama bin Laden when he was the leader of the Al-Qaeda jihadist movement was because we didn't take his word seriously. If you go back, bin Laden was very clear about what he wanted to do, about his worldview. I mean, he wrote it out in long letters and speeches that forecast all of his plans. Donald Trump has done the exact same thing. And he has talked about how he wants to run a second administration as a retributive president, that he wants to get revenge against his enemies, that he wants to use the powers of government to go after his political enemies. He means it. You need to take him seriously. Whether you're MAGA or whether you're progressive, please take the man seriously. That's what he wants to do. He would like to come in and systematically rewire federal departments and agencies to act on his behalf, to advance his personal self-interest, and to get retribution against his enemies. If you think it's more complicated than that, you don't understand Donald Trump. That's it. That's what he wants to do with your federal government. Now, you can be a conservative, you can be a MAGA person, and hopefully look at that and say, I pay like 30 or 40% in taxes. It's kind of a lot. I don't like it. But I definitely don't like it if I'm just paying for one guy to go in and get back at people who pissed him off. It seems like kind of a waste of my money. But that's what he wants to do in a second term. Now, I'll give you an anecdote that I think was very revealing. I was in a meeting with the ex-president, Donald Trump, in the Oval Office, and this was March of 2019. And we were having a conversation about a foreign policy deal that we were trying to close with a foreign government. And at the time, it did not make sense to me why Donald Trump made this segue in the conversation. But we're sitting there, the lights in the Oval Office were turned off. It was the afternoon, so there's like sunlight coming in. He, of course, is drinking a sweaty Diet Coke on the table, and we're chatting, and he said something to the effect of, I learned when I was in business that when you want something, you have to actually go and get it, and you can't just threaten to sue someone, okay? Like, you can't just threaten, because if you threaten to sue them, people will say, and they'll blow you off. You have to just sue them, whether you have a case or not, and they settle like babies. He said some version of that. Right. And, at the time, I remember thinking, this is very weird, but you think back to Donald Trump's career, and his disposition, whether he had a case or not, was to go sue his adversaries, because once you sue them, they face the prospect of court costs and discovery and all these things, and so they just want to settle. Put more simply, you develop leverage over them that you didn't have before. It ended up being very relevant to the conversation we were having about a foreign partner at the time, but it's also how Donald Trump viewed every action in government. He was on a constant quest for leverage. Where can I get leverage over someone else and use that leverage to get the thing that I want? Now, that's not inherently a bad thing. In any negotiation, let's say, with a foreign power, the United States might want leverage and use that leverage to advance its interests. But this is different. This is a man looking for personal leverage to get the thing that he personally wants and not for the country. That's the Donald Trump you will see in a second term. That's the person behind the scenes, is a man who's constantly hunting for ways to get leverage over his enemies. How will that manifest in government in a way that actually affects your everyday Americans? Well, one of the examples I go back to that I saw a lot in Homeland Security was emergency response. Is when Donald Trump would see disaster strike around the country, it's the president's job to sign these disaster declarations and send federal aid. But if a disaster happened in a blue state, Donald Trump saw an opportunity, because he was like, this is a place where there's a governor that doesn't like me, people who didn't vote for me, maybe I don't sign that disaster declaration. Or maybe I call up the governor and see if he's willing to cut me a deal. That was his mindset. And we saw that happen actually in several circumstances. We talked him off of it. But it's the type of thing that will happen in a second term. He will deliver federal assistance selectively and retributively in a way that gives him leverage over his adversaries. That's very weird, and it's not how we expect government to operate.
We saw that in Puerto Rico, didn't we, in that terrible moment where he was throwing toilet paper at people. I mean, does this make the point, though, that actually someone from the business community does not make a great president? And that, because obviously there's that whole argument about trickle-down economics, and there's no proof that it actually works, but it is a conservative argument time and time again that if you deregulate business and give them those, the tax breaks, that eventually the working man will be able to benefit. I mean, there's no proof of that. But, that's really, a lot of conservatives are still voting Republican despite Donald Trump, because they think a businessman or a wealthy person in office is a good thing because wealth equates to success, and that their tax liability might be reduced. I mean, how do we get to the point where we are allowing a demagogue, a dictator, an autocrat, potentially a second turn, just because some people don't want to pay a high rate of tax?
Well, Anthony, this is where I'm going to have to disagree with you, my friend, because I would say, as a conservative, a great businessman makes a great president because you want someone who's very efficient at managing a large organization and doing things that great business leaders do, which is great business leaders, if you go down to the brass tacks about what makes them effective, the best in the world tend to communicate and delegate. They articulate the strategic priorities very well, and they delegate responsibility to their subordinates in a way that carries out that vision faithfully and with integrity, and they're really, really good at that. But I want to go back to the beginning, because a great businessman makes a great president, in my view. Donald Trump is not a great businessman. He is a failed businessman across the board. Trump Steaks and Trump Vodka and Trump Airlines, and we could go on and on. But a rejoinder, though, might be folks say, but no, he's rich, so he must be a great businessman. Well, Al Capone was rich. Al Capone was incredibly rich. You can be rich and not be a great businessman. You can be a fraud. And we've seen this with Donald Trump throughout his history. The man, even people who've been huge supporters of his, have come away saying, he's a total fraud. He swindled me in this business deal or that business deal. So I do still think great businessmen can make great presidents, but he is not one. And in fact, all the characteristics that made him a failed businessman, he took into the White House. And in a lot of ways, he made the U.S. government his largest failed venture yet. He rendered so many departments and agencies effectively incapable of discharging their duties because of his volatility and his corrupt nature. I saw it in our own department. It was supposed to be my job to support the work of the 250,000 men and women under me at the Department of Homeland Security. But instead, because the president was so impulsive, I had to spend all of my time focused on one person. I had to spend my time focused on how do we manage the president. That's not a sign of a good businessman. He's clearly not communicating and delegating really well. That's the sign of the exact opposite. And that's just how he governed in a first term with those quote-unquote guardrails in place. I think it would be a great deal worse in a second term. And I wouldn't think that – I don't think business leaders should get too excited about a Trump second term being better for them economically than a Biden term. And I hear this argument from Wall Street execs and Wall Street business billionaires that, well, it'll be better under Trump than it has been under Biden. If there's one thing that matters to American businesses, it's stability, it's consistency. It's why we live in a land of laws. It's why the rule of law is good for economies and democracies and for human flourishing. A second Donald Trump term will be so volatile, from our relations with the world to domestic policy to the stability of the executive branch itself, that I think it will be very dangerous and destabilizing for American businesses and American trade. I think it's important for conservatives to know that.
Talk to me with your expertise in national security about the security threat of Donald Trump, because we often talk about the security clearances that in the real world he would never have been able to achieve, let alone Jared Kushner and a whole bunch of people that worked in the White House at a senior level, talking about his aides and surrogates. There is a real security issue here, isn't there? And in fact, the fact that he now has a publicly trading company with shares that people can buy, which he uses, in his own spiel to try and artificially inflate the value of. I mean, anybody could buy those shares and try to curry favor with a future president. That combined with, his history of stealing classified documents and sharing the information, as he did, famously with an Australian businessman. I mean, that does not make for a safe nation, especially a nation like the United States, which really kind of should celebrate its safety and security.
Well, I'll actually go back to the comment I made about leverage. Because if Donald Trump operates in a manner that's focused on finding leverage over his enemies, then he should know that America's adversaries operate very much the same way. And that's no coincidence. Autocrats operate like other autocrats. So whether it's China or Russia or Iran or North Korea, that's how they end up corrupting Western figures and officials and collecting intelligence, is they attempt to develop leverage over them. Whether it's compromising material, whether it's taking on their financial debt. This is actually why when you're someone like me and you start your career as a government bureaucrat, you fill out this form called the SF-86, Standard Form 86, and it's all of this information, very personal information about your life. And you have to fill out that form to start the security clearance process, to either get a secret or a top secret security clearance. And that form asks about your finances, your family, your friends, any foreign nationals you know. And you do that because over decades and decades, we have learned there are tried and true tactics for our adversaries. And that's if they can get that financial leverage over you or penetrate your circle, they can squeeze you, and they can get you to share classified information. Now, folks might be surprised to learn that the President of the United States doesn't have to fill out an SF-86. Why? Well, because the Constitution doesn't say, when they win the majority of the Electoral College, now they must fill out Standard Form, 86. And so you have a person who ends up ascending to the highest office in the land, who's got access to the most sensitive information of the federal government, who actually hasn't gone through that sort of vetting. Donald Trump is not required in anywhere under U.S. law nor any president, to disclose all of his financial dealings, to disclose his foreign contacts. Now, a lot of people do, as a matter of course, when they get elected, but Donald Trump could win this presidency again. And this is a hypothetical, but it could be that Vladimir Putin has found a way to bail out his companies or to do other things to ingratiate himself to Donald Trump, and we, the American people, might not know. Why does that matter? Because then Donald Trump goes into the White House and doesn't want to do anything to piss off that foreign adversary that either has helped him or that could potentially hurt him. This is very real. This happens every year in the national security community with people at sort of a mid-level. And we know foreign governments are targeting Donald Trump because they consider him susceptible to influence. That's been declassified. That should really alarm everyone. And I'll tell you, we saw it in his administration. We would get nervous about him dealing with foreign governments because it was so easy for Donald Trump to get played. It really was. I mean, he was so susceptible to flattery and getting played. And you saw it. These foreign leaders learned in the first few months that's all you had to do. Because you'd get on these phone calls or read these transcripts of foreign leaders talking to Donald Trump, and they realized, literally all I have to do is blow smoke up his ass, and we'll win him over. And it worked. He was very susceptible to those things. So there is a national security concern here. A bigger thing, Anthony, and I'm happy to get into it, will just be all the different ways he intends to use the security services of the U.S. federal government corruptly for his own benefit. That, to me, is also a national security threat, to have the intelligence community serving the president's personal whims rather than monitoring threats to the American people.
I want to talk about that next, especially when it comes to voting. One of the things I've been saying is that, if you vote for Donald Trump this time, you may never get to vote again. So we'll talk about the details of that in just a moment here on the Weekend Show. Have you ever wished that you had a whiter and brighter smile? Well, before you visit a dentist, you should know that their whitening treatment, being president forever. Just talk to me about the bigger picture, the safety and security. See site for details. We're back on the Weekend Show. I'm Anthony Davis. Miles Taylor, the threat of a future Donald Trump presidency is not just about Democrats being sad losers. It's about a threat to the bigger picture, the safety and security of the nation as a whole. It's a vote between democracy with Joe Biden and demagoguery or dictatorship under Donald Trump. He's even admitted it. I mean, that's what's so frightening about this. And we're at a point now where there are Trump supporters considering a dictator and saying, well, maybe that is what we need after all. My concern is the vote and how Donald Trump, with his fake elector scheme, that didn't work last time, so he sent the mob into the Capitol. That didn't work in the end. He really wants ultimate control. He's talked, as Vladimir Putin does, about being president forever. Just talk to me about, with the benefit of your expertise, about your fears going into a second Trump presidency regarding democracy and the loss of it.
I will say, Anthony, it's one of the reasons that I felt compelled to write Blowback. And I suspect a lot of your listeners have the same view as me. And I would urge them, they may not need to read the message. This is something you should be sharing with friends or family members who think Donald Trump is going to operate a second term in some even-keeled way, or that maybe he's learned enough from the first term to operate in a more sober-minded fashion. That's not the case. And, they don't have to take my word for it. I try to quote as many of these people as possible in the book that had served in that administration along with me as possible by name to describe what they predict will happen in a second term, the things that he wanted to do that he wasn't able to accomplish. So specifically, what does some of that look like? You can go department by department in the federal government and see some pretty frightening things that Trump would do in a second term. Let me give you one example. I spoke to several people who ran the Department of Veterans Affairs under Donald Trump, people who were his deputy secretaries, the general counsel, folks that were appointed by Trump in the White House to run that department. And I actually didn't think I was going to find anything there. It was kind of a box checking exercise. I wanted to talk to senior leaders of every department and agency under Trump, and I was like, okay, Veterans Affairs, I don't remember a lot of controversies. There were a few small ones. And I went and spoke to them, and they said, oh, yeah, in a second term, he's going to totally detonate the department. I was like, what do you mean detonate the department? It's the Department of Veterans Affairs. It gives benefits to people who've served our country in uniform. They said, yeah, well, he hated veterans. He called them lazy malingerers. That was a quote from one of the senior officials from Veterans Affairs. And they said he viewed it like a piggy bank because Donald Trump learned early in his administration he had more flexibility with the budget and the programs in the Department of Veterans Affairs than other departments. And so what he wanted to do was to upend the Department of Veterans Affairs and spend all that money on other things that were his priorities, things that Donald Trump felt like were more important than military veterans. And he sort of ruefully put those plans on a shelf when his advisors warned him that if he nuked the Department of Veterans Affairs before his reelection, he would lose, because you don't touch America's military veterans. And so, again, his own people said, yeah, I mean, we convinced him to pause, but in the second term, he's going to take a wrecking ball to the VA because he wants to send that money to other projects. I mean, he wanted to take VA money and go build a border wall with it. You could want to build a border wall, but I think most people wouldn't want to build it on the backs of disabled American veterans. That's the type of really cynical stuff that his own people are predicting he'll do in a second term, but it goes much deeper than that, and it gets much weirder than that, because I went and did another box-checking exercise and talked to executives from the Department of Education under Trump, and I thought, I don't know, what are Department of Ed people going to tell me? It can't have been that bad over there. And when Betsy DeVos was secretary, Donald Trump and Stephen Miller wanted her to issue an order saying that students who were the children of illegal immigrants in public schools should be kicked out of public school because we shouldn't provide free education to the children of illegals. Now, they ended up pushing back on that, saying that we would get sued in the courts. They turned it around, the staff at the time under Betsy DeVos. But those same staff members told me, oh, no, in the second term, they're going to bring that executive order back and they're going to do it themselves. Imagine being a person who feels so angry towards immigrants to this country that you want to go kick their little third and fourth grade children out of American schools as a means of punishing them. That's pretty sick stuff. I want a more secure border than we currently have, but I'm not going to go punish children to make it happen.
You still don't get it. They still don't get it. If you take away the future generations educated by America, you take away the future of America. But you got sycophants that think somehow that's helping them by not educating anybody that's of any, I guess, anybody that's not an Anglo-Saxon. Do you understand? And they are actually trying to destroy the United States, and they're using, what did Putin call them, useful idiots, to help them to destroy the house that they live in. The scripture says, he that troubleth his own house shall inherit the wind. Well, that's the truth. Once you tear down your own country, you don't have nothing. So, what can I say?
For the types of things you could see in a second term, to say nothing of what would happen in the national security departments and agencies. Had a lot of people under Trump tell me he'll use the wiretapping powers of the intelligence community to go after his adversaries, and you would think that's impossible. There's too many layers between the president and those authorities. Well, towards the end of his administration, he tried to stack the intelligence community with loyalists who would have been willing to carry out egregious orders along those lines, and certainly that's their intent in a second term. And in the department that I was helping to run, the Department of Homeland Security, Trump regularly wanted to go deploy DHS forces almost like a private militia to carry out his will. And we often said no to that, but even after I left, you saw him do this in Portland, where he ordered the deployment of counterterrorism forces that work within DHS for the first time in history on U.S. city streets to go put down, rallies and protests. That will be put on steroids in a second term, and you will see these things happen not as isolated incidents, but as standard U.S. government policy.
Yeah, that was very frightening. I talked to that a lot. We didn't know who those military people were. They were unmarked. They were using unmarked vehicles, and they were disappearing people off the streets. And that is the stuff that we would expect out of Russia or North Korea, but not the United States. I mean, these were American citizens that were being disappeared. Finally, I just want to look at a phrase that we hear from a lot of Republicans and potential Trump voters, and that is, well, when Trump was president, there was no war. And this is something that Trump uses himself. And obviously now we're in, there is a much more complex international situation than ever before, both with Ukraine but also with Gaza. Trump is obviously denying having any involvement with this, despite really destabilizing much of the Middle East during his presidency. Could you just talk to those people who claim that, you know, a Trump presidency brings no war versus Joe Biden having to clean up Trump's mess?
My message to those people right now, in all sincerity, would be the reason that there was not a catastrophic global conflict during the Donald Trump presidency was not because of Donald Trump. It was despite Donald Trump. And let me tell you what I mean. I think if it were not for courageous people like my former boss, John Kelly, former Defense Secretary Jim Mattis, to a certain extent Rex Tillerson, and others, there's Mark Milley, there's quite a high likelihood that the United States would have been thrust into extraordinary conflict during the Trump presidency because of things he wanted to do. And even more specifically than that, I want to point to North Korea, because the way that the president was handling North Korea at the time so concerned all of us in his national security cabinet that for the first time in the history of the Department of Homeland Security in the United States, we had to hold private exercises to assess what would happen if Trump accidentally got us into a nuclear war and there was a nuclear strike on the U.S. homeland. To my knowledge, and I ran this by the Department of Homeland Security when I was publishing this book, there was no other circumstance since the department's been created where DHS had to do real-life nuclear war planning because the president was putting us in such a volatile position. So if you think Trump kept us out of wars, what I'm telling you is, I'm not trying to say Miles kept us out of wars, but a lot of good people around Donald Trump prevented him from making decisions and taking actions that could have got us into the most dangerous conflict we've ever been in the modern history of the Republic, up to potentially and including World War II. I mean, the guy was playing with fire when it came to nuclear weapons, and we were really, really worried about it. And I will tell you, I can't divulge the details of those nuclear response planning exercises, but they were not good. And I will tell folks who think that we can survive a second Donald Trump term without getting into one of those conflicts, you haven't seen what I've seen on the other side of the wall of how terrifying that could actually be. And the man does not have the discipline to avoid getting us in those situations, and he certainly will not bring in a team that reins him in from making those impulsive decisions that could spiral into catastrophic conflict. That's how bad this could actually get. And I will tell you, on top of that, this was something else that I got to reveal for the first time in Blowback, is the department gave me permission to write a little bit about something that is privately referred to as the Doomsday Book. So there's a book inside the White House of break glass in case of emergency powers that the President of the United States allegedly has in the instance that the United States gets invaded or struck by a nuclear weapon or goes to war. And those powers allow the president to do some pretty extraordinary things to protect the country. However, in the wrong hands, those authorities could be misused to do some pretty terrible things to exert control over the United States. At the end of the Trump administration, there was a frenetic effort to keep that book out of the president's hands because people were worried that Trump would use those powers to keep the government from being transferred over to Joe Biden. And it very nearly ended up in the wrong hands of a MAGA sycophant who almost got installed in the job overseeing the security of the Doomsday Book. I'm very worried that in a second term, Donald Trump, the crown jewels aren't going to be safe from him. He will go and access those tools and authorities, but not to protect the United States, but to wield his influence over the American people in a way that is, by some definitions, quite clearly unconstitutional, anti-constitutional, and that's a fear.
Remember, they was kicking the idea to Trump. What's his name? Mike Flynn told him that he could declare martial law. And under martial law, you can temporarily suspend the government and take charge of everything. There you go.
I do expect there would be vastly greater geopolitical disorder in a second Trump administration as he pulls away from our Western allies and tries to get America to cozy up to its enemies, but also as Donald Trump tries to use some of those extraordinary foreign and defense powers here domestically.
It's a terrifying thought. Very finally, he's not doing it alone, is he? We have the Heritage Foundation with Project 2025.
Now, it's one little point that I missed that I wanted to let you hear.
10 seconds on the clock. How many things can you name that are always growing? They're all-in-one e-commerce platform to their grow with Shopify. Sign up for a...
From working in the administration, the stuff that you write about in the book is compelling. It's almost like a thriller. The way the book reads like a thriller in that way. Government should not work like that. It's supposed to be boring. It's supposed to be administrative. Just talk to us about how Trump behaved and the things that he was stopped from doing that you describe.
Estimated Osama bin Laden when he was the leader of the Al-Qaeda. And I realized it was born of his insecurity. But much later I realized something more significant, is those claims he was making weren't absurd. They were spot on.
The ramifications of speaking out were significant. And we're even seeing that at the moment. I mean,
enforce that narrative of, people who are scheming. And so I felt like it was important to come forward. And again, in some ways, ironically, the revelation policy positions. And so, I still believe very strongly in that. I think it's very important. But, you do have folks who've become so tribal that they have, in fact, think Donald Trump is not a conservative. I am ideologically, philosophically, intellectually a conservative, as defined in American politics. And we don't have to go into political philosophy here and go deep, but for those that are well-read enough, I mean, I'm a Friedrich Hayek, Milton Friedman, what they would call a classical liberal, but is over the past few decades assumed the terminology of a conservative in American politics. I'm a small L libertarian, and that means that I'm actually not a huge fan of Joe Biden's policies. But why did I vote for Joe Biden in 2020 after serving for Donald Trump? And why do I continue to support him for the presidency in 2024? Is because you have to, in a circumstance like this, put country over party. You have to say there are things more important than my party's policy positions. And so, I still believe very strongly in that. I think it's very important. But, you do have folks who've become so tribal that they have difficulty even seeing that justification. And, Trump has tried to portray anyone who's spoken out against him from within the Republican Party as the deep state, which has been, I almost needed no opportunity to argue against that, because as he makes
somebody who's done the wrong thing rather than he didn't feel like he was being a whistleblower. Our federal government is made up of really...
I'm a Friedrich Hayek, Milton Friedman, what they would call a classical liberal, but is over the past few decades assumed the terminology of a conservative in American politics. I'm a small L libertarian, and that means that I'm actually not a huge fan of Joe Biden's policies. But why did I vote for Joe Biden in 2020 after serving for Donald Trump? And why do I continue to support him for the presidency in 2024? Is because you have to, in a circumstance like this, put country over party. You have to say there are things more important than my party's policy positions.
That's what I wanted you to hear. Above all things, there's a young man that he understands the seriousness of this. What if Edward Snowden had looked at Russia and the U.S. and compared the two? He wouldn't have went over there acting like he was doing something big to report something about what the U.S. was doing as far as the intelligence community spying on Americans and that kind of thing. If the intelligence community wasn't spying on Americans, do you see what a president of the United States just did with the freedoms that was given to him? The man tried to destroy the government that gave him that freedom. Do you understand? You're not living in reality if you think that everybody that grin up in your face is your friend. I don't think that everybody that says salam alaikum to me is my brother. I just want y'all to know that. Look here. one of my brothers just sent me this Quran that the very name on the outside of it tells you it ain't nothing. Noble, the noble Quran. Noble don't mean holy. Why call it the noble Quran instead of the holy Quran? And then as you read it, you start realizing this is somebody giving you something to appease you, to placate you, of putting a pacifier in your mouth. So, it's like that green Jehovah Witness Bible where they went through there and changed the name of God to Jehovah throughout the whole book. That's like giving you a history of the United States and calling every president Abraham Lincoln. Oh, and as far as you out there that may not be paying attention, I want to let you see something else here. Don't worry, I'm going to let you go in a minute. But you're going to be well informed when you leave here. Let me see here. Let's see. This is, what did I want to get to here? I think this is it. Yeah. Now, just in case, because, people don't want you to see these things. Put that disclaimer up there. Now, don't you dare come in here and say, I can't use this. Let it scroll. I can walk and chew gum. Fair use disclaimer. The copyright laws of the United States recognizes a fair use of copyrighted content. Section 107 of the U.S. Copyright Act states, notwithstanding the provisions of sections 106 and 106A, the fair use of a copyrighted work, including such use by reproduction in copies or phonorecords or by any other means specified by that section for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, including multiple copies for classroom use, scholarship, or research is not an infringement of copyright. This video and our YouTube channel in general may contain certain copyrighted works that were not specifically authorized to be used by the copyright holders, but which we believe in good faith are protected by federal law and the fair use doctrine for one or more of the reasons owed above, including non-profit educational purposes. If you have any question, for that's what this is, non-profit educational purposes. If you have any specific concerns about this video or our position of application of the provision of fair use as defined by the copyright laws of the United States, please contact us at patentagent1@msn.com or call 601-786-1888. Now I want to read this to you because you need to hear this. Because you see this just about every Sunday. You hear these words just about every Sunday. It says, this is the 24th chapter of Matthew. And I'm going to read I'm going to briefly read it, starting at the first verse. And Jesus went out and departed from the temple, and his disciples came to him for to show him the buildings of the temple. And Jesus said unto them, see you not all of these things? We say it this way now. Do you not see all of these things here? It says, verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. All this stuff going to be destroyed. That's what he's telling. It says, and as he sat at peace, that's what it meant when it said on the Mount of Olives. And as he sat up on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, tell us, when shall these things happen? And what shall be the sign of the coming of these things and the end of the world? Not the signs of thy coming, but the signs of the coming of these things, these events, and the end of the world. And Jesus answered and said unto them, listen, take heed that no man deceive you. For many shall come in my name, saying, I'm Christ, and shall deceive many. Now, this is Jim Jones here. Now listen to this.
Wheelchair. Try it. Just try it. Just try it. We have nothing to lose. We have no face to lose because we've said we're no panacea. But I have seen more healings here than I've ever seen in Italy. I love you. Jesus Christ loves you. Jehovah Jireh.
Did you hear that lie he just told? Listen to what he said. Listen.
I love you. Jesus face to lose because we've said we're no panacea. But I have seen more healings here than I've ever seen in Italy.
He have seen more healings there than he have seen any place. Do you know what a liar I would be standing up in here talking about I done seen more healings in my meeting than I done seen any place? I done been to the hospital before. There's plenty of healing going on in the hospital. I didn't hear you. But you see what happens when you become blinded by your emotionalism or your emotional attachment to some fool standing up pretending to be something he's not? Huh? Any man that would have you to be treating him like he's something other than a human being, that man don't give a damn about you. That man running game on you. Huh? So you listen.
I love you. Jesus Christ loves you. Jehovah Jireh. All the goodness of all the world's great religions in the name and the mercy and the goodness of Jesus, where
many shall come in my name saying I'm Christ. He's just one of many. That's Jim Jones.
I stand. Come forth, my dear. Stand up. Take that step. Bless your heart. Take that step. Take that step.
She lying and he lying and she helping him. He had some black ones doing that too. And all of them was lying. Just like Oral Roberts used to do. I think Billy Graham did that too, didn't he? Was he ever one of them kind too? Stand up there pretending he making people walk and all that was crippled. All these people just Just a bunch of liars.
Now, move forward. Move forward. Move forward. Move forward. Move forward. You can do it. Move forward. Move forward. Child, see how we do just a minute, so just keep our love forward. Now, move forward. Freely, freely, freely. Now begin to exercise the giving. Begin to exercise the joy. I love you. Christ loves you. The people love you. Now, sisters, walk briskly. Walk briskly.
That's what Donald Trump got behind him. Bunch of lying hypocrites. Just a moment. Let me show you. I ain't through. You're going to be well informed when you go out of here. You just a moment here. I'm going to show it to you. Let's see here. Where's that other one at? Here it is.
Started as an effort by a charismatic preacher to build a new society, but it ended, of course, with the tragic deaths of more than 900 people. Here's NBC's Joe Fryer.
Jonestown was supposed to be a paradise in the South American jungle. It was anything but.
The saddest part about this tragedy is that good, decent people died who were well-intentioned.
The story begins in America during the 1970s when Jim Jones created a religious movement called People's Temple. The charismatic minister fought for civil rights and had a multi-race...
Now, you're not going to like what I'm about to read to you here. But you know, this world is full of folks that are always calling somebody good and all that. But my definition of good come from God. When they called Jesus good, he said, why are you calling me good? There ain't none good but one, and that's God. And if I refer to someone as good, I'll qualify what I mean by it. Do you understand? This, let me show you something here. In the 10th chapter of John, I'm going to start at the first verse. Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that enters not by the door into the sheepfold, but climbs up some other way, that same person is a thief and a robber. But he that entereth in by the door is the true shepherd of the sheep. To him, the doorkeeper, the porter, open it, and the sheep hear his voice, and he calls his own sheep by name and leadeth them out. And when he puts forth his own sheep, he goeth before them, and the sheep follow him, for they know his voice. And a stranger will they not follow, but will flee from him, for they know not the voice of strangers. What was they doing following Jim Jones over there to commit suicide? written, my sheep hear my voice, and they follow me. And a stranger will they not follow. For they don't recognize the voice of a stranger. Huh?
Family.
It was the original Rainbow family.
Including his adopted son, Jim Jones Jr.
Did his message at the time resonate with you?
Yes. No isms, no sexism, racism.
But in the new book, The Road to Jonestown, author Jeff Gwynne details how Jones...
See what happens when you don't know the Word of God? If you take the Holy Scriptures and put them out the way, then all roads seem good, like good roads. The only way all of those roads that lead to one destination, which is your destruction, the only way you know that is because the right way is there and can be pointed out to you. If a man say, I represent God, that's a heavy thing to say. A weighty thing to say I represent God. And if you represent God, God should know you. You remember when Minister Farrakhan was asked point blank by Phil Donahue, does God talk to you, Minister Farrakhan? And Minister Farrakhan said, you mean do I hear God in my ear? He said, yes, does God speak to you? And he said, no, of course not. Of course not? That's what he said. How in the world can you represent me if I don't never speak to you? Come on. Tell me something. All y'all sitting up out there. Can anybody claim to be representing you? Donald Trump sitting up in court right now. Attorneys represent him. And you see him leaning over speaking to him all the time. Huh? Well, how in the world are you representing God if God don't speak to you? And you saw Crimson Tide with Denzel Washington and Gene Hackman? Okay. They was on the submarine. And they were representatives of the United States under the direct authority of the President of the United States. Is that right? They received an emergency action message, supposedly from the President. But they had to authenticate that. Is that right? Once it became authenticated, they began to get ready to fire nuclear weapons. Is that right? Because that was the orders from the President, who knew things that they didn't know. Okay. So the one that they represent, which is the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the United States, communicated with them. Is that right? So if anything was said about it, when they followed them orders and acted on them, they had proof that it was communicated to them by the one that the American people elected to be the chief executive officer of the United States and the commander-in-chief of the armed forces of the United States. And they received orders from him and authenticated those orders, which means they had to follow those orders. Do you understand? But there had to be communication. If Allah didn't communicate with me, how could I claim to be representing him? He said, Son of man, go, get thee to the house of Israel, and speak with my words unto them. Well, that's generally what happens when you representing somebody. What come out of your mouth came from them. I didn't hear you. What have I said to you that you can't find in the Word of God? Come on, tell me. Yeah. Now, Jim Jones. Where's he at in the scripture? He even named his town Jonestown. And he say, in the name of Jesus. He doing it. Jesus said, many gonna come in my name saying I'm Christ, and he called Jesus Christ. Let me show you. Let's see here. We wanna get it right. But first, let's well, I'll go back to that one. Just a moment. I like to make sure that I show you these things so that you don't later on have an excuse. I ain't gonna give you no excuse. I'm gonna tell you these things, and then if you don't want it, fine. But you need to hear it.
We have no face to lose because we've said we're no panacea, but I have seen more healings here than I've ever seen any place. I love you. Jesus Christ loves you. Jehovah Jireh. All the goodness of all the world's great religions.
Did he call him Jesus Christ? All right. Let's hear it. Do I need to slow it down? If I need to slow it down, I'll slow it down for you. Let you hear him. He called him Jesus Christ. That's what he said. Many shall come in my name saying I'm Christ and shall deceive many. Let's see. Let's get it right.
Christ loves you. Seen any place. Lose because we've said we're no panacea, but I have seen more healings here than I've ever seen any place. I love you. Jesus Christ loves you. Jehovah Jireh. All the goodness of all the world's great religions in the name of the mercy and the goodness.
What do you mean all the world's religions? What kind of representative of one God is he? Representing more than one religion. Did you hear that? Okay. Now, let's get back over here to where he, after he tricked them into coming over there with him, then he go and kill all of them.
Started as an effort by a charismatic preacher to build a new society, but it ended, of course, with the tragic deaths of more than 900 people. Here's NBC's Joe Fryer.
Jonestown was supposed to be a paradise in the South American jungle. It was anything but.
The saddest part about this tragedy is that good, decent people died who were well-intentioned.
The story begins in America during the 1970s when Jim Jones created a religious movement called People's Temple.
What's that saying? The road to hell is paved with what? Good intentions or well-intentioned people. You know, if did y'all see, what was that, the day after? Where that ice storm and everything came? The day after tomorrow. You remember when the young man told them that his father, who was a scientist, had told them, don't go out there because it's going to be too cold and you're not going to survive it? And the other ones, he told them to just wait. He told them that his dad was going to show up with help. Huh? But some of them wouldn't wait, huh? What did David tell you? David said, wait on the Lord, didn't he? And then Jesus told you who the Lord is that you're supposed to be waiting on. It says, the Son of Man is the Lord, even of the Sabbath day. Why? Because that's the day where the Son of Man would be begotten. And I will declare the decree. The Lord of the worlds have said unto me, thou art my beloved Son. This day have I begotten thee. Huh? But you didn't wait. You couldn't wait. So you decided that you're going to be your own Savior. People like Jim Jones and all these self-appointed preachers out here. In Jesus' name. Well, ain't that what they've been claiming? All right. Listen to this now, and look at him.
Charismatic minister fought for civil rights and had a multiracial family.
It was the original Rainbow family.
Including his adopted son, Jim Jones Jr.
Did his message at the time resonate with you?
Yes, yes, yes. No isms, no sexism, racism.
But in the new book, The Road to Jonestown, author Jeff Gwynne details how Jones started to change.
He's convinced himself that he is some sort of superhuman martyr.
Jones persuaded nearly 1,000 followers to move to a remote jungle in Guyana.
The concept was to build a new world.
A social...
You notice, when you ask me what make me think I'm the Son of Man, I show you that I read that in the scripture here, that's who I am. I didn't convince myself. The scriptures convinced me. Why? Because that's what it says. It says in the 12th chapter, it don't come out and just say the one like Moses, but it's talking to the one like Moses. Because it says in the 12th chapter of Numbers and the 5th verse, it says, and the Lord came down in the pillar of the cloud. What's the second pillar of faith? All of their clouds. So great a cloud of witnesses, huh? Okay. Well, I'm reading out of the clouds now. And the Lord came down in the pillar of the cloud and stood in the door of the tabernacle. He that entereth in by the door is who? The shepherd. Then it says, and called Aaron and Miriam, and they both came forth. And he said, hear now my words. If there be a prophet among you, I, the Lord, will make myself known unto him in a vision, and I will speak unto him in a dream. But my servant Moses, my servant Marvin, is not so, who has faith in all of my prophets, who is faithful in all of mine house. with him will I speak mouth to mouth. How did God describe a mouth? He said to Moses, he said, Aaron the Levite is your brother, and he cometh, and he will be glad when he see you. Well, even he shall be to you instead of a mouth, and you shall be to him instead of God. Do you understand? So if Aaron was Moses' mouth, because Moses was God, okay, well then, the messengers of God, Moses, David, Solomon, all of them, John said it. When they asked him, who are you? Are you Elias? He said, I'm not. He said, are you that prophet like Moses? He said, I am not. He said, well, what then? What shall we tell them that sent us? I am the voice. Where did your voice come from? Don't be scared. Answer me. So, if he said, I'm the voice, I'm the mouth of one who crying in the wilderness. What do you think about when you hear about somebody crying? You think about a baby, don't you? Unto us a child is born. And you know what happened when the child is born. They start crying. Huh? And the scripture says that she gave birth to a man-child. And her child was caught up to paradise, caught up to God in his throne. Huh? And he heard words that he was unable to speak. But eventually he grew up and was able to speak them. Do you understand? So this is me now. So it says, my servant Moses, or Marvin, is not so, who is faithful in all my house. With him will I speak mouth to mouth, even apparently. And that's how I found out I'm the Son of Man. Jesus gave me a hint when he said, he that entereth not by the door into the sheepfold, but climbeth up some other way, is a thief and a robber. It says, but he that entereth in by the door is the shepherd of the sheep. Okay. Jesus later on, in the 7th verse, he said, verily I say unto you, I am the door of the sheep. He says, and all that ever came before me, all that you can't get through a door before you stand before the door. When somebody knocking on your door, they standing before the door. And it says, all that ever came before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not hear them. Why? Because you notice you go to church, they don't dwell in the gospel. They dwell on what Paul said or some other part. Mostly is what Paul had to say. Because they don't understand the parables that Jesus spoke. The parables is the lock on the door. Do you understand? And so, if I'm not the shepherd, then why am I able to unlock the parables that Jesus spoke and go through Jesus to reach you? It's because I'm the shepherd. He that entereth in by the door is the shepherd of the sheep. And I go in and out. I can go in the Bible and out of the Bible and find pasture. I can go to sci-fi and find truth to teach you. I didn't hear you. That's in and out. Do you understand? So now, Jim Jones, he is a thief and a robber. And he finally robbed them of their greatest possession, their life. That's what Trump gonna do to y'all.
utopia.
Jonestown was described as its paradise, and it was not.
Former member Leslie Wagner Wilson says followers were overworked and underfed.
And then as time wore on, I realized that there was no future in Jonestown. Jim became increasingly paranoid.
Jones was obsessed with revolutionary suicide. He felt followers should be prepared to die for their cause, even having them drink fruit punch he claimed was poison.
Only after most of the people drank the liquid did he tell them, it's not poison, I was just testing you.
In November 1978, a concerned Congressman, Leo Ryan, flew to Guyana to investigate, accompanied by NBC News. While some followers praised Jonestown, others wanted out.
What is your wish today? To go back home, U.S.
As the congressman left, he took 15 defectors with him, angering Jones.
People play games, friend. They lie. What can I do about lies? Are you people going to leave us? I just beg you, please leave us.
He ordered gunmen to follow the group to the nearby airstrip.
It's funny how liars always accuse other people of lying on them. Like Donald Trump. Everybody knows Donald Trump is a liar. Are we on Truth Social? Yeah. But all of them know he a liar. How you know they know he a liar? Because when I call him a liar, don't nobody try to defend him. I didn't hear you. You know why they don't try to defend him? Because the only way you can defend a liar is to become a liar yourself and start telling lies to cover his lies. The truth will not cover a lie. The truth will make a lie disappear. Do you understand? We take truth and hurl it against falsehood, so it knocks it out of its brains. And lo, it disappears. It vanishes. Look at it. Tell me something. How many people do you know of that can, let me show you what I done did here, and I constantly do it. What you call repetitively. You've been sitting down here, listening to me for 3 hours. And I consistently hold your attention for that amount of time, not because I'm standing up lying, but because that's the gravity of the truth, locking you in. Do you understand? It's 11 o'clock. I'm going to quit now. But I want you to see this last little clip here. This is the end of the liar.
Where they opened fire. 5 were killed, including Congressman Ryan, NBC correspondent Don Harris, and cameraman Bob. Congressman left, he took 15 defectors with him, angering Jones.
People play games, friend. They lie. What can I do about lies? Are you people going to leave us? I just beg you, please leave us.
He ordered gunmen to follow the group to the nearby airstrip, where they opened fire. 5 were killed, including Congressman Ryan, NBC correspondent Don Harris, and cameraman Bob Brown. Sound engineer Steve Sung and field producer Robert Flick escaped, as did Ryan aide and future Congresswoman Jackie Spear. Back at the commune, Jones gathered his followers for a final sermon.
We've had as much of this world as we're going to get. Let's be done with it. Let's be done with the agony of it.
This time, Jones served a punch spiked with cyanide. More than 900 died, 300 of them children. Jones shot himself.
We know from autopsies conducted later that a considerable number of people were held and forcibly injected with the poison.
In the end, how many relatives did you lose?
I lost 11 relatives.
Wagner Wilson and her 3-year-old lived because they were part of a small group that escaped during the confusion that morning, hiking through more than 30 miles of dense jungle to safety.
How scared were you to try to escape?
I was terrified. I was waiting for a bullet to hit at any moment. I was prepared to die on that day.
I don't know how I can ever describe it in words.
Jim Jones Jr., 18 at the time, lost his wife, but he lived because he was in Georgetown, Guyana's capital, as part of his frequent public relations work for the temple.
So the million-dollar question is, would I have done it? I can't say I would, but I can't say I wouldn't have.
That shows how much power Jones had.
And part of that, I believe, is because we all are looking for a place to fit into the world. We're looking for love. We're looking for acceptance. And Jim Jones provided that.
Today, a memorial in Oakland serves as a remembrance for those who died, predominantly African Americans and the elderly, whom Jones's initial message...
You know, as long as you're looking for acceptance, you're going to always be misled. The book didn't say we shall not all sleep, but we shall all be accepted. See, your problem is you don't want to change. So you look for somebody who don't demand that you straighten yourself up. You look for people that say, oh, come as you are, that's all right. It's all right, whatever you think. Jesus loves you, and I love you. So just come on in. We all love you here. You know, what is love? Tell me something. What is love? If somebody asks you, what is love? Or what if somebody asks you, what is hot? What is hot? Well, I'll tell you, because we got to go. Because I know you know it, but hot is just an extreme of warm. Love is an extreme of like. Hatred is an extreme of dislike. Do you understand? So, you want, as you say, you want heaven, but you want it on your own terms. You want to be accepted as you are. That's why all of your religions teach you just come as you are. God loves you. Well, all you can do is come as you are. That's not what that you ain't got no choice but to come as you are. I just want to know, are you ready to change? And if you're not ready to change, don't come to me. Because you ain't going to be happy. Because I don't want you as you are. I want you to be ready to change as you are and become a different person. Except a man be born again, he can't see the kingdom of God, let alone get in. I mean, ain't no caterpillars can stay here. You got to all become butterflies. Which means you got to wrap yourself up inside of the Word of God with me and become a new creature. I didn't hear you. Now look, I ain't saying this in private. I'm saying this in public. And all of y'all that's been poisoned by that noble Quran, you get rid of that thing. And you get you a Holy Quran by Maulana Muhammad Ali, the Pakistani. And it's from Lahore, Pakistan. And you get that translation. And then you come to class and get your mind purified. So And you don't. The Quran, the Holy Quran, is a holy book, not a noble book. It's a holy book. You know how people say, well, he made a noble try. A noble try. Not a holy try, but a noble try. Allah's word ain't noble, it's holy. Be ye holy. Nobility will not make you holy. But holy will make you noble. Do you understand? All right. Any questions? So I guess some of the young people are listening to me because we look like we forming a brotherhood here. Huh? So all praise is due to Allah. And that makes me happy. That's what we want. We want a brotherhood of righteous people. Do you understand? So I'm gonna close now.
In liberating strife, who more than themselves their country love, and mercy more than life. I'm talking about America. America, may God all your goals refine, and may all your success be in uprightness, and every gain divine. Oh, beautiful, for spacious sky, for ample waves of grain, whose purple mountains they stand just like great majesty. Up above the fruited plain. I'm talking about America. May Allah bless America, and may He shine His grace on thee to crown your good in a one great brotherhood, from sea to shining sea. America, may Allah bless America, and may He shine His grace on thee. You and me, may He crown all our good in one brotherhood, from sea to shining sea. And we thank our Lord, from sea to shining sea.
Yeah. Like I said, you got a good thing here. You just don't know how good you got it. Don't you know when God starts something, he finishes it. The only way he won't finish you is if you won't let him. And you got a good start towards paradise. You got the natural mind. Remember, he made two Adams. Just like the two beings, the man and the woman, out of the man. If you want your civilizations to be reproduced throughout the universe, then that spiritual mind, you need it. Just like the woman, when you killing yourselves, when you growing old and dying, you need that woman to procreate, to keep yourself going. If you want a perfect civilization and you want it to be sustained perpetually, then the only thing that will keep it perpetually sustained is you have to have a word that's perpetual. That's why the messenger, when he said the sun, he called the sun she rising again. Oh, praises due to Allah. So it's a lot of things that we don't know, that it's time to wake up. Wake up, everybody. That's what time it is. So don't miscount the value of the woman. Just like you don't want to miscount the value of your educational system. She reproduces you. You know what the duty of a civilized man is? It is to teach civilization to the ignorant savage. And if the civilized man fails to perform that duty, he shall be chastised with a severe chastisement. And you know what that severe chastisement is? When you don't properly teach your children to honor you, then they will grow up dishonoring you. And the next thing you know, you may be sitting on the couch watching TV with your wife. And them babies that you raised up without proper guidance, the way that God said do it, may grab your shotgun and blow your brains out so they can hurry up and get their inheritance that they couldn't wait on. Or your babies may grow up and go get your gun because you was too busy trying to be a friend to them instead of being a parent to them, and not recognizing that for you to think that you can make friends out of your children while they are children, you are out of touch with reality. That friend that you looking at there that's 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 years old and all the way up into their teens and whatnot, can't you see you steady losing that friend? And when that friend reached an age where they can make their own decisions and do what they please, whether you like it or not, then you will get the reward of what you sowed. You sowed the wind, and when you reap the whirlwind, you'll be hollering, where did I go wrong? I don't know. I loved him. I gave him everything. Yeah, you gave him everything, but what God said, give him. So you just remember that. You know, I know I got some followers in particular that know I made a prophecy about one of them. One day he slapped his mama. I told her he gonna grow up and he gonna whip you. That's exactly what happened. I didn't say it in front of him, but you don't tell me not to correct it. I know what goes through the mind of little boys. I'm old, but I ain't antique, and I'm not yet senile. I was a little boy. I know what little boys are capable of thinking. Unless you frighten it out of them. Tell you what, you ain't never seen a little boy slap his mama. Now, some of them, they laugh and think it's funny. But the minute he raised that hand to slap you, you better put something on his behind. If you don't, you just taught him that that's okay. All right. Might be cute to you now. You're going to wind up having to put that boy in the ground. Or his daddy going to have to wind up putting him in the ground. Or he'll put you in the ground. One of the two. You know, if you don't chastise a child from time to time to make them put away that foolishness that's in all of them mind. I was about stupid as the days is long when I was a little boy when it came to how to think about your parents and all that kind of stuff. I was just as stupid as the rest of us. But I was scared to show it. Do you understand? I'd mutter under my breath and stomp my foot sometime when he couldn't hear me. But boy, if he heard me, come here, boy. Shoot. My daddy told me, I brought you in this world, boy, and I'll take you away from here. And I know he meant it. My daddy wasn't going to take no whooping off of me. And my mama wasn't either. So I was a fool, but I wasn't a fool long. Do you understand? So all praise is due to Allah. Now I'm 73 years old, and I'm a pretty decent man, thanks to the people that I was around growing up, thanks to my parents not letting me be too stupid. People run around here thinking that if an officer pull them over, they ain't got to do what the officer said. You're stupid. How's it hurting you to show the man your ID? You out there on the highway driving, and he pull you over and say, may I see your ID, and show me some ID, or whatever. What do you want to go back and forth with him for? You got to show him I ain't scared of you. Well, What is that? It's a whole lot of people in the graveyard that wasn't scared. Okay. You think it means you scared of him because you show him respect? Then when he act like you say he's wrong. You something. Anyway, I'm just telling you. There's an old saying we used to have when I was growing up. Don't start nothing and won't be nothing. If you want people to show you respect, then start by showing them respect. And tell you, well, need you to get out the car. Okay. May I open the door? Yes, sir. Okay. Stand over there or sit over there. Okay. No problem. Well, the reason I stopped you is because of this, or because he's going to eventually tell you why. I ain't got to ask. He's going to tell me. Most of the time I know why he was stopping me anyway. So I didn't have to wonder. If I got a light out, I'd tell him, officer, I didn't know I had a light out. And depending on how you acting, he may tell you, well, okay, well then you need to get that fixed. He may let you go. But if you want to get out there and show him that I ain't scared of you, you ain't got no authority to do this to me. Oh, man. Last thing you need to be telling any representative of the government that's in charge here, that's got people out there putting their life on the line every day, got to have a gun on them to keep, at least have some kind of protection for themselves, because some fool may be sitting up waiting to shoot them or whatnot. Now you want to show him that you ain't scared of him. Oh, man. If anything, you need to show him he don't need to be scared of you. That's the thing. So you got it backwards. You think they tell you all of the problems that happen with officers getting shot or something? And I don't blame them. I wouldn't tell you either. I don't want to give nobody no ideas. Do you understand? But, you know, I set their mind at ease when they pull me over. You know, when he find out that he dealing with somebody that's got some sense, he calm down. And if he's calm and I'm calm, then ain't no problem. Don't be looking at this garbage on TV talking about, well, I got rights and I got this. You got the cart in front of the horse. When you get in court, you got rights. You can argue your side when you get to court. When you out there on the street, you got what they give you. Do you understand? Don't ever forget that. Before he tell you you got the right to remain silent. And once he tell you that, you under arrest, man. Because you didn't know how to show respect while demanding respect. Okay, I done said enough now. Let somebody got something they wanna point to me now and show me that I don't know what I'm talking about. They got an old saying, you got your hand in a lion's mouth, you ought not wiggle it. I mean, really. But anyway, if you ain't got no better sense than to be out there kicking up your heels to somebody who got a gun while you ain't got nothing but your mouth, somebody who got a badge that you know represents something greater than himself, and you ain't got sense enough to respect that, well, go to jail. They'll teach you some respect. They'll give you what your daddy and them should have gave you. See? So I'm here to help you stay out of trouble, not here to help you go get in trouble. You do what I tell you, you won't be in trouble. There ain't no laws against doing the right thing. Always remember, put yourself in the other person's position, and if that was you, was the officer, and you pull somebody over, would you expect them to cooperate with you? Well, then cooperate. All right. Well, that just came up, so I think somebody needed to hear that. All right. May Allah bless us, keep us safe, and in our right minds. May Allah's Salam Alaikum.
Conference recorded.